Maybe. Do I have volume? Yes. Is it working? Is this thing on? For some reason my damn mouse doesn't want to track. Come on, mouse. What is going on? Okay, there we go. Is it working? Wait a minute. Oh, it is. Okay, they just updated. It looks like we're live on all platforms. I don't know how to do this. He's changed things. He's changed all the things. Hi. Hi. How are you? Hello. Howdy. Sorry, I was thinking I would be here sooner, and I have been here technically. It's just been crazy trying to get all the things turned on. But I'm here. Hi. Hi. What's going on, everybody? Hello. Good to see you guys today, too. Hello, everybody. Nice. James McCauley, thank you. Hope everyone is having a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday if you're celebrating that in the U.S., and that it's just a good Friday for you if not. It's kind of our normal stream time, but I'm here alone. I'm here alone. We Monument Hobbies is off today, so nobody else is working but me. And I don't know what I want to paint. It took me forever to figure something out. Like, I don't know what I want to paint. I typically don't do just the stuff we're painting on stream, right? Because Chris gets mad at me. He gets mad at me, chat. If I do the, are you guys? No, we're not. No, we're not. Nope. Back. Everybody will be back on Monday. Back on Monday. Yeah, sorry about that. We give the crew the weekend off for Thanksgiving and Black Friday, which is hard for a retailer to do, right? But we do it anyway. We don't care. We do it anyway. Hang on. We do it anyway. All right. So I don't know. I kind of, part of me wanted to paint a Layman Russ for my Solar Auxilia, but I don't know. I don't know if that's what I want to do. Right? These are hand-me-downs, eBay rescues, and so they haven't been really cleaned, so I don't know that that's going to work. Because I need to go through and work on these. They're built pretty good, but pretty good doesn't mean my standard. So I need to spend some time. There's just some sprue burrs on here and areas where I had a little bit of glue pile up. I don't know. I mean, I could just make it work. Or I have this guy. I've been wanting to paint this guy. He's from Hate. The board game Hate. I could paint him. The Hate models are cool. He's like a lizard guy. We used him years ago to do a very quick non-metallic metal demo. And then I didn't ever do anything with him after that. So we could do that. Or I could just paint a lot of Blood Angels, because God knows I have a million Blood Angels to paint. I don't know, chat. I don't know. Is your French store called of part of Mally? Is your French store called of part of Mally Anderson? Mally is our general manager for Monument EU. Right? So I don't, is that what you're asking? Sorry, it may not be translating correctly. So I gotta, how do I do this? How do I ban this guy? Oh, I have to have like Twitch stream up, don't I? To get rid of this? Hey, Jen, can you see that Bard Hacker D? Is this something that you can block? Ban? Block? I'm going to have a hard time banning people. I don't have an interface for that, so. I don't have an interface for that up here. You vote for hate guy? Yeah, I kind of don't want to do the tank just because I want to do the tank, but I got work I got to do on the tank, so I think that gets set aside. We could do the hate guy. I do have all of my Star Wars guys I need to be working on, so that's a choice. That's a choice that we could make. Yeah. Yeah. It is. Kind of don't want to paint those guys right now, though. I'm having a hard day, Chad. I'm like, I really want to paint, but I don't know what I want to paint. Why is this so hard? Why is this the way it is? Why are you this way, Jason? How come you can't just find it? This is not a formal stream, by the way, so if I just ramble a lot, I apologize ahead of time. It's just me in a building by myself. Old man says, is it better to do white zenithal with white ink for smooth finish or white paint primer? I don't use ink for anything. I use paint for everything. You can use our transparent white and it works like an ink, right? But, I mean, your paint should be giving you a smooth finish anyway. If you're getting a speckled finish from your paint through the airbrush or something for your zenithal, then you need to clean your brush or thin your paint a little more, most likely. Yeah, it is, One Rose. It's like analysis paralysis. I wanted to come stream, but I did not have a plan for what to do whilst streaming. Whilst streaming, what am I supposed to do here? Because as I look at this guy, he's kind of cool and all, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Sure. Let's paint this guy. Let's do this guy. I need to. How do I get? Okay, wait a minute. I gotta go zoom in. I'll go zoom in. All right, let's see if that puts him into focus when I'm painting. That's not bad. That's not bad. I'll try to stay in frame because I don't have a Chris, and Chris is the one that normally does all the hard stuff. So with no Chris, we just make it work. We're just gonna make it work, chat. Hokey doke, hokey doke. Let's have some fun. Let's have some fun here, chat. What say you? He's got a lot of skin. He's like a lizard man. Let's go. I have to always say on these solo flying days, I'm probably going to miss all the questions in chat. I apologize ahead of time. That's what I mean by a very informal type stream. We'll just have to wing it, chat. We'll wing it. Grabbing some colors I might want. Just play around with some stuff here. Some stuff here. Wrapping out your freehand entry for the month. Nice. Multiple attempts to get the desired result is kind of standard. Yeah, when you're learning, for sure. For sure. 100%. There's lots. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I still do where I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work, and we'll try it, and it'll be like close, and then we'll redo it, right? Depends on what you're looking for. If close is good enough, then, that can work. It's really just up to you. What do I want here? Maybe dark jade. Go with some dark jade. He bought way too many minis. By the way, during our 20% off sale on the store, that's still going on, by the way, for those of you that may not remember, the 20% off sale has got all of the leftover Journeyman and Mindwork minis on it. I say leftover, the ones that are left, right? Not leftover. They're great minis. But stuff like the Puppeteer, we have a lot of the Puppeteer up there, and that's not a model you can get in the form that we have it anymore. So you might want to go look at that. There's a lot of models up there, I think, still. That might be next to the cheapest way to get your pro acrylic paint that's ever been experienced in the history of ever. That might be one of the biggest deals on the site right now. I don't know what this is. What is this? I don't know what some of this is. That's the problem with these hate minis, is that Adrian Smith's artwork is phenomenal. Love Adrian Smith. He's doing the next round, or he's done the next round of artwork for our framables. But the Cool Mini or Not PVC treatment on these with the molds is less than desirable. They're not very good models for being painterly. The details kind of mush together on very fine stuff. So whereas this method of model making works really well when you're doing like BattleTech. I think it works pretty well for BattleTech, big flat paneled mechs. The material is not great to work with. PVC's gotten a lot better. You just have to design the miniature specifically for it. I think if you design a miniature to do it in hard plastics, and then you wind up choosing PVC over hard plastic, you kind of get some detail irregularities like these guys. These guys, the fine detail of the sculpt really required hard plastic, not PVC. And so some of the details get soft, which is a shame because these models are fantastic. The only reason I bought the Hate Kickstarter was because of Adrian Smith's art and because these models are freaking awesome. I didn't care about the game. The game's horrendous. But I say horrendous. There are people who like the game, but it is not the reason to buy this game. If you ever find a box of Hate available, it's a crap ton of minis, like 150 minis or 120 minis in the base box that are spectacular for any kind of model agnostic fantasy games. Kings of War being one these would be great at. I was playing them in a game called Erewhon, Lord Heroes of Erewhon. I forget what it was. It was Warlord Games gave Rick Priestley the ability to do a fantasy game, and it was basically like bolt action fantasy that was all miniatures agnostic. So it just gave you some rules for armies and some typical way that weaponry and magic worked and things like that. And then you could use whatever armies you wanted. They had a Viking list, and that's what I used these guys for. Was my Vikings. They're all like cannibalistic, crazy people from the apocalyptic wastes. Captain Schmo, what's going on? You sure that you guys would love to see the Adrian Smith stuff today? All right. For those of you that are early here, you want to see some cool artwork? I have my phone. Ta-da! I never have my phone, but I'm here alone, and I got to make sure I can answer the call should Jen have a call. Let me see if I have them in my phone. I know I can get to them. You guys have by now seen all of the original artwork from Ricardo Mostacello, also a fantastic artist, has done a lot of legacy Warhammer art, Space Marine stuff, things like that. He did all of the artwork for the current framables. So all of the stuff you know and love from our current framables is Ricardo. He's an amazing artist. He's also working on some other really cool stuff for us that I hope to be able to show off soon. All right, it's not in my actual photo library. Hold, please. I have to dig. I have to dig in company chat. Where would that be? Company chat. Would that be maybe with Mally? Ooh, that's gonna have to be like search back a bajillion years of search. Search. Adrian. Let's just make this easy. Search for Adrian. Fresh from Adrian. Look at these pictures. Ta-da! There's one of them who's like almost like a Frankenstein clockwork ogre. He's the muscle man. I would have to go back earlier, right? Earlier than all of this. Here's one. Where'd it go? Oh, there it is. Oh, this is my favorite. This one may quickly become my favorite texture trainer, right? As a frameable. Goblin Outlaw. Adrian, one of the amazing forerunners in the Warhammer Goblin and Orc world. And so we've got a really amazing kind of Wild West Goblin Outlaw type. I love his coloring on that guy too with the vest and stuff. Oh, where's the other one? Huh. This is some of my art. You've seen that before, right? Have you guys seen my old line art that I used to do? Some Spooderman. That's from 1994, it looks like. Tattoo artwork I did. I don't know why this is all in this thread. Some tattoo artwork I've done in the past. Look at this is like a trip down memory lane. Some bronze work I've done. Sorry. Woohoo! Nudies. That was the work in progress for a head badge on a motorcycle that I did. Where's the rest? Is this? No, that's not it. July 16th. Is it that one? Oh. Ah! I find! This one I love. This is like some weird alien kind of snake oil salesman guy. So these characters are all going to sculpt here soon, and they will be the next round of framables. Everybody's really loved the framables, so these are going to be great. These will be great. Is there going to be a tree guy of Chris? No. What's the deal with browns? He always owns so many browns, but never the right one. Browns are very nuanced colors, like greens. That's why there's so many greens. Greens and browns typically have, you look at your collection of paints and you say, I have too many browns and too many greens. And everything else you can get away with less, I think. You know, you could love a color and want a big nuanced collection of reds or oranges or yellows, but you can typically get away with less of reds, yellows, blues even. Blue is a nuanced color, but not near like green and brown. I feel like greens and browns typically are the ones that you'll want the most of in your collection. It's going to be any of the colors really that are mixed with such vibrant components, you know, like blue and yellow or green. Can give you a superior range of greens. You know, I'm using dark jade right now, and dark jade's amazing, right? But it's definitely more of a blue. Did you ever notice that once they started calling the snake oils essential, people started buying them again, right? Well, that's a little too literal reading into the word oil in that one, right? I think that comes from the fact that people trying to sell stuff like snake oil, that they were just selling placebos. When a lot of the what do you call it, essential oils, they call them, right? Essential oils actually have medicinal properties to them, right? That's more Eastern medicine type stuff, naturopath. I don't know much about it. My sister studied all that stuff, so I have just a fleeting understanding of some of it, but I know that colloidal silver and things like that were probably pawned off as snake oil back in the day, but maybe not, right? Because remember, there was a time before pharmaceutical companies making everything out of synthetic nonsense so that they could patent it, that the stuff you could just find on the side of the road was more commonplace. But hey, did we get rated? Hello, what's going on, everybody? I'm here flying solo today. Our producer Chris is off. We're Monument Hobbies, so anybody that's new coming in, please let me know. Chat if you can. I'm going to be staring at models and not chat most of the day. These are, for those of you who may be new here, welcome, number one. We are Monument Hobbies. I am Jason, the owner, co-founder of Monument Hobbies. And my partner Jen's in chat too, the other half of Monument Hobbies. And we give the whole crew off for Thanksgiving and Black Friday, which seems silly, right? Because we have so many orders and stuff to do. But it's kind of a sanity check for us. You get Thanksgiving and Black Friday off around here, which is nice. Everybody's off. So Chris is off, but I wanted to stream. So I scooted out of the house. I left Jen with, what did you call them, babe? Jen said the hoodlums. The dogs were being hoodlums. They were fighting and wrestling. And she's like, you're leaving me here with these hoodlums? I was like, yes. Ha ha! I am going to go paint. Here I am, painting with my friends on the internet. So welcome, everybody. But it may be that I'm not as interactive as I normally am, because that is largely, well, that's 100% due to my fabulous producer, Christopher, who we give so much grief to, but he is the runner of all things show related. And you will notice when he is not here how the quality falls off dramatically. Because I just paint. You turn out that, oh, the old guy just knows how to paint stuff. He's not really good at the interacting with the stream thing on his own. I used to be. It's crazy, right? I used to do this by myself all the time. I've gotten so used to having a producer now over the years that that's what we do. Yeah, exactly. They're being extra because of the sweaters. You saw the post on Discord. They're cute as hell. They're getting away with murder today because of their cuteness. The two of them together. Cora has had a purple hoodie, like sweater hoodie like that before, and she kind of ate it. She got a hold of it and tore it off of her and chewed big holes in it, and it looked really messy, like, you know, or a misbegotten alleyway dog if she wears it. And then Mom got Poppy all these cute sweaters. So then she ordered in new ones for Cora too. So they're looking all cute. The dogs are all cute. The parents, not so much. We're a little ragged. We're treating it like the holidays, right? Hair not did. Nails not did. Didn't get my mani-pedi. Looking a little rough. I've got my clean but not clean hoodie on because it has dog hair and slobber all over it, because I've been wrestling with the dogs a lot lately. It is finally hoodie weather here in Arizona. You didn't think it could happen, but it does. Is this model an add-on from the base Game of Hate? I don't remember. I think so. I think this might be one of the sub-factions that are all kind of lizardmen-like. I don't remember what they were called. I don't remember. This one with the V? Borshan or something like that. Look at me. If I remember anything, that'll be amazing if I get that right. I don't think it is, though. I remember there were some add-ons for the clans, and some of them were like irradiated lizard people. If you're not familiar with Adrian Smith's Hate, pretty brutal world. He's got an art book for it and some stories and stuff. Really brutal. Worth checking out. Do we have a Kenny? What? Do we have a Kenny in here? I don't have the noisemaker box. I don't have the alerts that Chris has. This is like total slum freaking stream. Not gonna lie. This is me doing my best impersonation of knowing what's going on. I slept at a Holiday Inn last night. I can figure it out. I got this. I can still pop a chicken. Oh God. I still have the chicken, the fart machine, Chris, you're fired. We can fire him all day long. He'll never know. And then therapy.
Let's dig into that more in our next session.
Next session, Pete. So I have that. I don't have any of the rest though. I will not desecrate Chris's sacred ground, so to speak. Right? Mo says that the Adrian Smith artwork I showed was fantastic. Now, when do you get it? Not for a while. I'm not going to release them right on the heels of the first series of framables. If you're not sure what we're talking about, chat, we just released during this week, right? Monday. Good God, it seems like forever ago already. This week on Monday, we released the new Texture Trainer series called Framables, the Texture Trainer Framables. They are 4x6 hand-poured resin sculpts that we have done all internally. Myself and Riccardo Masticello did the character design, all the character design work for it. And then Francesco Oru did all the sculpting. And they have turned out amazing. I have been having a blast painting them. We've got 3 different versions. We'll be releasing them in trios. The one that we're spending time painting on stream right now is this one. I can't back out. Oh my God. I got to run around the other side to be able to hit the button because he hasn't set up my damn button pad, even though I had it over here. That kook. But the framables are these 3-dimensional sculpts, right? So they stick out, you can see, but they go in a 4x6 frame. It's a 4x6 frame. There you go. This is the Duchess Prime that we've been painting up. She's coming out really nice. And then we have 2 others, which are the Surviathan, the Lord of Hooks. They basically have the 4x6 backplate, so you can treat it like a canvas and paint it how you want. Do your own environmental background for them. But Surviathan, the Lord of Hooks. And they're all done old Victorian portrait style, obviously. Right? And the Private General. Thrunk and Thrunk. I always forget their names. But in the Napoleonic kind of pose, lots of fun there. So tons of fun. Great way to ply your trade, have some fun painting miniatures, although they're pretty big at 4x6. And then having artwork you can use around your house, like lifestyle artwork that you can put in your living room, on your office desk, give to your friends. They can actually use it. You can't really give people Space Marines that don't play with Space Marines. So our artwork is always very personal in the miniature space, and I wanted it to be able to branch out. My whole goal was, hey, let's do things that are cool for everyone to look at in an environment where they're used to enjoying artwork instead of as, military spacemans and wargaming figures, which while they're cool to look at, and we all love them, they don't really translate well to the rest of the world trying to figure out what it is we do, right? Because they're like, what do you use that for? You don't hang a Space Marine on the wall. I mean, you could. But yeah. And the Adrian Smith artwork that I showed a little bit earlier, he is doing the new, the next series of 3, which are kind of Wild West bad guys. The Outlaws series is what that one's called. We've got a goblin, a clockwork ogre, and an alien-ish snake oil salesman that we were talking about. I'm excited for those. They're going to be a lot of fun to paint up too. Hopefully some of them speak to you and you can find some love in there. They're $40. And right now they came out, they got released during our 20% off sale for Black Friday. So they're like, I don't remember. Was that make them $34 or something like that? 36 bucks? No, even less. 32, right? 32 bucks. It's crazy. I'm crazy. Craig Sean J, what's going on? Jen and I had a really, really quiet Thanksgiving. Thank you for asking. We played with the dog, sat around. We watched a movie. What movie did we watch? We watched The King, right? The Henry V movie that's on Netflix. It's all right. It was okay. It took a long time to get started, and then it finished up much better than it started. So that was a lot of fun. It's hard to get Jen to sit down and watch a movie with me, so that was good. We're both kind of, I don't watch TV. She's more into the TV mode of things where it's more instant gratification and she can do other stuff and not have to pay attention while she's watching the TV. It can kind of be on in the background. And I'm like, if I'm going to sit in front of the television, it needs to be a cerebral movie that I can think about and get embedded in. So it's hard for us to find something like that. But yesterday we did. And then we had a nice dinner. We cooked, or she cooked. I can't say we. I steal her thunder. Jen cooked up a soup, a tortilla, amazing tortilla, Southwestern tortilla soup. So we had a Southwestern Thanksgiving where it's the tortilla soup and these amazing cheddar biscuits that she did that were great. Oh my God, it was so good. We're very simple on those things. I hate turkey. I'm that guy. I'm that guy they write the memes about when it comes to Thanksgiving. I would prefer to have ham. I just don't like turkey. Never have. It's too gamey. It's a horrible bird. Blech. Blech. Yeah, so there you go. Boom. That was our Thanksgiving. The dogs got the best end of the stick, I think. You're painting on the robot one with all the ruffles and material made me buy one. I typically don't like painting larger things, but this one's looks super fun. Jay Matthias, it really, really is. They are fantastic. You know, again, it's one of those things where the size, like our other texture trainers, is really built to give you the ability to practice textures and brush strokes in a way that are meaningful at all scales. Even though this might be big, you'll feel, I think, a little more confident in applying textures on something like this, and then your brain will instantly start doing the math on what do I have to do to put that on something smaller, you know. And I think that's really where it comes together for me. But they work really well, and they're just a joy. They're just a joy to paint. Just have fun, brighten up your day. You don't get turkey either, yeah. Potato soup sounds good. Chai Cat, what's going on? If the frame will speak to you, you put the wrong mushrooms in the casserole. Hey, whoa, 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 whoa. You had ham, Kraft mac and cheese, baked potatoes, and pumpkin pie. Brent, why were we not invited to your house? Because that sounds amazing. Mac and cheese, ham, potatoes. I would have mashed the potatoes, but baked potatoes are good too. I'm not going to complain. All right, so there we go. We got a dark jade base going on. I like that. I like some of that. What now? I think I want to use the dark hot pink. Yeah, no, yeah, wild duck is really gamey and oily, like greasy, right? Duck is good. We usually, like on Thanksgiving, Jen likes to do a Cornish game hen, I think it is, most of the time. Those are really good. Having the game hen is nice. A pheasant game hen, that kind of stuff. But there's still, it's more of a greasy meat, right? It's not quite as gamey, but it's still pretty gamey. Gonna have fun with this guy. Hear what we get. Sitting here using contrast paints to get some base coats on and making me want to try your nude spit. Ooh. Yes. Yes. Come to the dark side, my son. We're going to love. I am going to have the time of my life watching the world as they get a hold of our speed paints. I'm super, super stoked to be able to get that formula right and get it out to you guys. It's out of my hands now except for testing. So we're hoping to have really good news in the coming month or so on all of that, be able to then start focusing in on colors and showing you what the line is going to be like. Initially, we're going to have 12 as the goal for the Adepticon time frame, and then we'll see where we get. So I'm super, super happy with where those are headed, which if you've known and have heard me talk about speed paint style paints in the past, you'll know what a big deal this is as we start to make moves to come out with those. Snowby, you need to work like on your brush strokes. You feel like a bull in a china shop. Yeah, it's really just being able to take the time. I mean, take some material off your brush like you see me doing, and then just really use the brush in more of a, I don't want to call it painterly, but just a little bit easier brush stroke. You know, don't worry about ham fisting paint on all the time. If your first brush stroke doesn't get the paint where you want it, you have a second brush stroke loaded and ready to go to follow up, and that really helps, right? I think that's the biggest key as painters in the world of wargaming. We don't all come from a fine art background. I don't. I never passed an art class. Let's put it that way. And I've done all sorts of art my whole life. But I didn't ever really take well to being taught how art worked, and that is just part of my personality. I didn't like being spoken to about no, that's not the way to do it. To me, art felt like expression, right? Freedom of expression. Why we say there's as many ways to paint as there are painters, because it's up to you what you think looks good, and don't let anybody else tell you different, right? Obviously, the I won't call it pressure, but it is kind of pressure, right? That people will put on you for, um, your style not meeting their needs and all of that is going to have some influence no matter what as you paint. That we would be, lying or hypocritical to say it doesn't, right? People are going to, say things that affect you, and you're like, oh, I got to change that because I don't want people to, think my stuff is bad, and that's fine. But really working from a place of knowing that what you're going for when you get there, you feel it and stick with it. That's the key. And for me, I didn't want to be told how to draw a horse. The horse sticks in my head because it was a thing about a horse in one of my art classes that really did it. That like was turning a corner for me. I was like, "What are you talking about? There's not one way to draw a horse." And I get that you want all of your students here who have never drawn anything before to start learning how to draw, and I applaud you for that, teacher. But I have drawn. Can I just draw a horse the way I draw horses, or do I have to learn your way? And they were like, you have to learn our way. And I knew that was kind of the unspoken finish line for me. I was like, I'm not going to do this. It's not going to work well. I was not a person that did well with authority anyway. That's not one of my strong suits. And so that kind of ruined me from that perspective. And so coming into art, thinking in terms of just keeping it what you think is right can do a lot. It can help you develop your own style. It doesn't have to be what everybody else knows is right. You'll see a lot of people talking about, oh, do this, never do this. It's like, okay. But sometimes I can do that. Old gamer, right? Yep, that has been my stance on it. I said that I would not do them. What was the rest of that? Can you remember? Can anybody in chat tell me what I always say? I won't make a product until what? This will speak volumes to the point you're bringing up. If you can remember what I always say. I say always. There's certain things I say I won't do. Brent, until I want to use it. Correct. Yeah. The thing is that, and Mo, that's kind of what that means, is that until I can make it of a quality that I would use in my process, I will not make a product and sell it. And that's just, some people look at that as being like ego. It's not meant to be ego at all. It's meant to be something that's just like, I have to stand behind these products. We have to warranty our products, and we have to want to make them. And as artists, a lot of us, me included, I want to make product that I feel really awesome painting with. So that when somebody comes in here, especially with the way we do our stream, if somebody shows up on stream and it's like, why would I buy this instead of, Vallejo or whatever else? I need to be able to have a conviction. Why would I sell this? Why would I hope that you give us a chance versus the competitors that you've already used and you may be happy with? Why should you try what I have? And so I have to feel good about it, right? I have to feel like, oh, because let me show you. That means the world. People are like, why would I buy your expert acrylics versus, Winsor Newton or Liquitex or something like that? And I'm like, well, here, let me show you how these paints work differently and better than everything else out on the market, in my opinion, for my way of painting and the way I think of things. That's just very important to us. And so that's what we've done. We think we've created a paint that knocks it out of the park, that puts something into my workflow that I'm happy to have. This is solely a zenithal highlight with our speed paints over the top. And then a dry brush on the gun. I dry brushed white blue over the gun that had a pain gray coverage on it, right? So, you can see like the brown leather bag, the satchel there, no dry brushing over that or anything, no dry brushing over the rest of the fur on Chewy. That's literally just our paint, right? That was two colors of brown that I mixed up, a dark brown and then a lighter brown up on the top that gave it a little bit more yellowishness, and then the black brownish color in the shadows of the fur, and it shows you how well it blends together. The paints just work really well. So we did a lot of that with these first Legion models that I'm painting up. That was a smoky green that we have on the pants. So, and nothing over it. That's just the paint. But it's matte, as you can see, very matte finish. Flows really, really well. And just does a number on stuff, right? We were mixing a bunch of colors up. I really, really liked the Payne's Gray over the top of the areas I wanted to be metal, just with a quick dry brush of the white blue. Just was like instantaneous non-metallic steel in that kind of, we call it jokingly wish.com non-metallic metal, but it is, right? It's just a super fast way to get things to look metallic without using any metallic paint. Just with the Payne's Gray over the zenithal and then a quick dry brush of the white blue gave me steel blades. So super stoked with it. Smoky green pants. You should what? You should go see the doctor. This is a common theme with you people today. If your food talks to you, not good. We use the wrong kind of mushroom, somebody told me. How am I supposed to know these things? I'm not a mushroomologist. That's an ode to Kinney right there. These kind of, sweeping, wispy brushstrokes cause a situation where I don't have to blend anything, right? I'm basically painting islands of color on muscle groups to get the effect that I'm looking for, but I'm doing it in lines and not painting big splotches of paint. Doing it all. Number one, his skin is very wrinkly, and so I can get away with it. But number two, because with the brushstroke that way, it helps it look like it's blending a little bit more in with the green, even though it's not really. Yeah, the matte finish. And believe it or not, the matte finish is one of the things that's the hardest to do with those types of paints. The matte finish kind of fights the process you want the paint to adhere to. So I get why a lot of manufacturers, well, none of them have a matte finish to them because it makes it tough. You have to actually put in extra time to develop what you have going on in order to get that to work the way you want it to. That's not always easy. So we're excited for it. But not just the matte finish, because they will work with my process. I can mix them. I showed in the test we were doing how they work alongside our other colors, how the medium works, where you'll be able to create your own out of all the colors that you already have in your Pro Acryl arsenal, or with other paints. I think that's going to be huge. And the way they mix and blend together, and then with water like nobody's business. So you don't have to worry about using the medium every time. You can just thin with water. They don't turn to slop. They still work exactly the way you expect them to, all that. So, lot to like about them. Super John, hope you had a great holiday too. Sorry, I mentioned before when I'm doing these solo ones, I'm probably missing lots of stuff in chat. I apologize. We're just going to have to remember that me flying solo equals very, what would we say, sporadic engagement. Whereas normally, if you're new around here, we normally have got my producer, Christopher, who really is the guy that makes the show work, here answering or fielding all the questions and posing them over to me and things like that. So today it's really more just a fun hangout with friends, paint stream. So I apologize in advance. Or maybe it's not in advance anymore because I've been going for a while. But I apologize either way. That if you do have specific painting questions that you don't get through to me today because I'm just kind of having fun painting, consider this my day off. And we'll be back on Monday, raring and ready to go with more of the standard content. We finally fired him. No, it's his day off. Hi, should your EU shop support sales to Norway? I think that the problem with Norway, Switzerland, and a couple of other ones are that you're not really EU member states. You're just part of the. Am I right in that? Like, it's one of those weird deals where you guys aren't part of the EU. You're just part of the financial part of it. You trade in euros and all that. And they charge you an inordinate amount of money to ship there. So I don't know that we have those turned on. We're trying to figure out how to manage that on our side because there's nothing that we have that can charge you the import fee as a variable. I can just say it's because, like, I think to Norway it's like 20 euros on every order just to ship it. It just seemed abusive to me. So our goal is to get more retailers opened up there so that we don't have to do that to you because it just seems wrong. I don't understand it fully, but I apologize. Not the answer you want, probably. We can, if you send an email, for those of you that might be in Switzerland, Norway, those countries like that are, not true EU member states, if that's the way to say that, email support@monumenthobbies.com. And the support team can get the guys over in Europe to take a look and see if we can't do something that would manually help you out and force it through the system, do an invoice or something, so you can take part in the sale and all that. We don't want you to miss out. So email support, tell them what your deal is. Hey, I'd really like to get it shipped to X, and we'll take a look at it on Monday and see if we can't help out. I say we. Mally will take a look at it on Monday along with myself. I'm the systems guy. I'll probably have to figure out how to make it work, but look, we have the tools. Missed it when it first came out. What game is this mini you were painting from? It's from a board game called Hate. That was Adrian Smith's IP. He has a story of hate. It's this apocalyptic wasteland filled with murder, betrayal, cannibalism, and it's really bleak. You want to talk about grimdark? I think hate beats every other scenario, even the new Trench Crusade stuff. It's just amazing the world he built for it. But anyway, the game is called Hate. There's an art book for it. There's some other graphic novel stuff that he's done. Adrian Smith, famous for a lot of the work he's done for Games Workshop, Warhammer, things like that. Fantastic artist, character artist, designer. He's doing some work for us right now. But this game came out from Cool Me or Not years ago, maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago. I know you can still find it in some places. I've walked into game stores that have it on their shelves still. The game, not unplayable, but not great. The models, fantastic. We were talking about them. They're made out of PVC, so they're a little bit soft on details when the detail gets really tiny, but still really good to pick out and get good paint on. Nothing that makes them unpaintable. And then you can use them in model agnostic fantasy games, or even I guess you could fit them into some weird science fiction games if you had a lot of melee, because they're all like axe wielding butchers and things like that. But some really neat kind of mutated humanoids. You can imagine like rad wastes with magic and things like that. So really, really cool scenario that they've got built up. And I'm just playing with color right now. I'm just I put some dark jade on there. We're going with some dark hot pink to give us some blood under the skin feel, give us that reddishness that I like. Magenta, really. Hate in 2019. Holy crap. Seriously. Nearly 7 years ago. That's crazy. Was that when the Kickstarter ran? Or was that when it delivered? Good gosh, really? I guess maybe it was prior to COVID. No. Really? Maybe. Maybe it was. Holy cow. Is that true? I would have painted the first Hate miniatures I did with like the very early Procro releases then, right? Before we had anything more than like the base set expansion sets 1 and maybe 2. That's insane to think about like that. They're all like this. They're all a bunch of skin and armor and sharp knives and skulls. That's it. The whole thing is armor panels all over the place, sharp objects, and skulls. And lots of, I don't care if it's raining outside, this is how I am. It was in the before times. Travel Cedric, that was delivery. That seems so long ago, but yeah, okay. How translucent with a speed paint medium B? It's hard with Noosh, for example, nailing the color when mixing it into the medium. It lightens up. It doesn't lighten up. It dilutes. So none of our mediums have any other than the metallic. The metallic medium, because it actually has the mica flake in it, it will brighten the color up. None of the other mediums, Noosh, glaze wash, none of them lighten the color. They don't tint it at all. They have 0 tint strength. What happens is that they dilute the color, which makes it not as dark, right? So whenever you're turning something into a lighter or into a thinner version of itself, it loses its vibrancy. And for dark colors, that means they don't come across as dark as they should. So knowing that, add more paint, right? Especially with mediums like Noosh, you can get away with quite a bit of coloring in there so that the color you get is the color you expect and still have a long working time. With the speed paint medium, same thing so far, but it is ultra clear. So Fallout Wasteland Warfare line, I think the Swan model would be dope to paint on stream. No, I'm not a huge Fallout fan, but I could look at them. This guy looks kind of Uruk-hai. Kinda, right? He's huge though, right? To give you an idea of scale, this is, get our Terminator captain. Right? He's a big boy. The heroes for Hate are all very large. They the board game itself has like a bunch of 25 millimeter. I was looking around for some other ones, but I don't think I have any more in here. They're all in the other room. But the normal warriors are all like 25 mil, so they're not heroic scale even. They're fairly small and pretty good, like realistic detail and anatomy. So they're very small, and then you have these hulking heroes, and I think each faction had two that were this size, and then one that's even bigger, right? And so you have one lord, two generals, let's call it, and then your foot soldiers. I think is the way it went. Vornash. I was close, right? I was right. I wasn't perfectly correct, but I was on the. I knew it started with V. I see we were blessed with a professional producer. Rocket, you show me too much love. Chris is the pro. I'm the. I'm not even the Wish.com. I'm the on sale at Costco version. There's also the mall cop. Yep, Hank and Lydia. We have a whole story that we were going on with painting the hate miniatures. Hank and Lydia. This guy, I think, was supposed to be the boyfriend, right? Was that it? The boyfriend of the daughter? I don't remember. What would you recommend over Payne's Gray for your next step on Great White Squigosaur? Payne's Gray as a base, cool gray would work really well. Or slate gray might be the best next. So you go slate gray into cool gray. Is probably the right way. That gives you really good great white vibes. Warm gray also works really well in all of that. Right, so you could go that. I mean, I don't know, something like that. Depends on how many colors you want to use. I really like the slate gray over Payne's gray, and then the cool gray. That's what we did for the owl suit, right? When we were doing this, we then went to like transparent white and such to get the armor to look more white. But the we could have stopped. We talked about it in the stream that we could have stopped when it was like in this range, which is where the cool gray landed, right? Like the shadow side as opposed to the bright side. Give you an idea. All right, I think golden yellow or warm yellow or bismuth yellow. I think bismuth is too cool. I think golden yellow might be the right thing. Start with golden yellow. What did you use for your blood angels? I used Payne's Gray, Dark Plum, and Burnt Red so far, Ogre. I used Payne's Gray, Dark Plum, and then Pyro Red. So same base. It's just that the Burnt Red will be a lot darker. I just went straight Pyro Red over the Dark Plum. It gives you the in-between color if you filter it on right, so you still get the Payne's Gray dark shadows, the Dark Plum mid-tone shadows, and then that red just punches. And then over the top of that, I did the orange red, and then the orange red mixed with dark flesh, which is that what we lovingly call eclectic salmon. It's this color as a highlight, and then I took the Pyro Red again, very thin down, and did it as a filter over the top. So it works really good. And then of course, then you do the pale pink highlight, and it brings it all together with the shine. That's the only thing that's missing on this guy is the pale pink, believe it or not. So it looks a lot different when you get the edge highlight on there. Even though the pale pink is, we always say the smallest amount of paint makes the biggest difference when you do that bright edge. It brings it all into focus and makes it look like, what it's intended to be. So. It's been months and you're still not sure where all your stuff is? What are you talking about, Schmidt? What are you talking about? Did you move? Do I not know that you moved? Exactly. Just buy new stuff, then the old stuff is found immediately. That's the way that works too. No lies. Like that's legit how that works. Again, welcome everybody to Friday. It is a day off for us, so this is me casually streaming, having some fun just painting whatever the hell I want to, which is this guy. And I'm going to kind of be very sketchy with my color here because of, you know, uh, homeboy lizard flesh. So purposefully bringing my brushstrokes out into these quick little dagger streaks helps to define the texture of the skin better. You can see how well our golden yellow just sits over the top of these dark colors too, because that dark hot pink is while it looks bright, it is not that bright of a color. Shadow Knight, I don't know what I'm doing right now. I'm just playing with color. I'm not intending on it being underpaint as we would normally do. I'm planning on just layering stuff until I get to the way I want it to be. I probably will treat this as an underpaint for the first layer of kind of grayish green I'm looking for, but I haven't really thought about it too much. I'm just kind of being playful with color right now, if that makes any sense. It is the same process, so to speak, because I am using the same type of coloring that I would do for underpainting, but not the same style. I'm doing a little bit more detail with my textures that I'm using. Normally, when underpainting, these little types of textures don't survive, right? So we're going to play around today with showing you how you can use the same color combos, but not have it be something that you intend to cover with a glaze entirely. I say that, and then we might cover it with a glaze entirely. Who knows? Welcome to the mind of a madman as we try to figure out what Jason wants something to look like. I never know. I never set out with it's not true. I set out with a plan sometimes. My plan might be red skin. This is not. This is kind of like a grayish green skin that I would like to see. But if I set out for, grayish green skin on this guy, and then we might wind up with that just going completely out the door if something along the way speaks to me, right? If we get to a point where, oh, but that looks really bitchin', then we might stick with something that is completely not gray green, right? You might have yellow, magenta, and jade skin. I don't know. For me, that's one of the best things about painting in general is that I just get to kind of have fun and explore with color. I kind of think of myself as just a big 5-year-old with a box of crayons a lot of times. Insert age here, maybe not 5, but you get my drift, right? It's that I love to just play, to explore and find new things, starting from the same things I already know, right? Because I already have a lot of ideas on how things work. I've been painting for a long time. I might be like, oh, yeah, I would normally do red like this, and then we'll start with something, and then along the way you'll find like, oh, but what about that, right? The Blood Angels came from that, right? The Payne's Gray into the dark plum came from just playing around with color and being like, oh, but that looks really rad, and then just stick with it. My 90s is showing with all my that's rad. The yellow gets to bring my warmth into the kind of sunward facing areas of skin. The nice thing with yellow and the magenta-y color of the dark hot pink is that the yellow and the magenta will make more reddish colors where they feather and blend at the edges, which is great. and all of that will juxtapose the dark jade shadows really nicely. Rad or dad jokes? Probably both, right? Because I think the rad generation is now also the dad generation, unfortunately. I did not have kids along the way to be able to harass with my bad humor. So some would say I did a disservice to the world. Do you eat the crayons? I mean, this is where I'm supposed to say, do you aspire to be in the Marine Corps? Right? My Marine buddies would not allow me to not say that. But probably not. I ate Play-Doh because it was really salty. So there's that. I will give you that. I don't know why I just outed myself as a Play-Doh eater. That's probably not good. Probably not the thing I should have done, but that's what I'm doing. I'm doing that. I'm sharing that honesty with you, that tidbit, chat, that bit of tid. I have 4 kids. They get it all the time. Awesome. Cornflake says you guys are my kids? Oh, that's not good for me at all. Are any of you basketball stars? Professional sports players in a high-paid sport? That's the only question I'm going to ask right now. If everyone is my child, where are my pro ball players at? Or my high finance investors? I've got a deal for you on a investment you need to take part in. A little art supply company that's going to take over the world. You need to get in on the ground floor of this. Capsock says, I know where the basket is. I know what the basket looks like. Can you hit it consistently from either or both outside the 3-point line or inside the 3-point line and post up? How good are you at boxing out the offense? I have questions. You're not even good at arcade basketball. I'm probably worse at arcade basketball than I am at street ball, and that's not saying a lot. My dad excelled at basketball, and I think was very ashamed that I did not. That I became a hockey player because screw basketball. He would, I think my unfortunate truth for basketball is that he played street ball at a very high level. He played at college, and so he was not afraid to go out to the courts and throw down with the local kids on just the street court. And he would take me with him, and those guys would hurt me. I'm like, I thought this was a friendly game of basketball, and they would throw elbows, and I would go home hurt. And so I was like, yeah, I don't like this game. If I'm going to go get hurt, I want to play something I'm good at. Your dad was a boxer and you played hockey too? I box as well. My dad did not. Not that I know of. That was never anything that I think came up. I boxed because that was the thing that happened through hockey that they wanted for strength and flexibility conditioning was more prone to getting you where you wanted to do than like necessarily just like pure weightlifting and stuff like that. So I love me some boxing. I actually taught a couple of classes here at a local fitness place when I moved to Phoenix originally. I say taught. They wanted me to help a few of their members. They had a couple of heavy bags, and they wanted me to help a couple of their members work the heavy bags and learn how to do the heavy bag correctly because they had somebody get a boxer's fracture from, you know, doing the standard nonsense, just laying in and punching the heavy bag. I'm like, this thing weighs a lot, right? I love boxing though. I don't like professional boxing, but I love boxing. I don't know why. When the paint starts getting low on the brush, especially with a color like yellow, you'll see me start to just use it more like a glaze. I'll start to attack the areas that are in between my colors because I know I'm not going to get a lot of opacity. Like here on this bigger, I say bigger, it's still small, but this spot on the heel, I know I don't have a lot of color on the brush, so as I go down like this, I know that's going to blend with my magenta better. Wirehead, awesome. What was your go-to color recipe for puke? Puke. Ugh. Bile laden puke is always something that's tough, right? Because in the real world, that I always look at what it would look like for real. And puke is generally colored off of your last meal. I know. I know, Jason. Why do we got to be so real? So the bile and everything is kind of a yellowish clear kind of mucusy color. So I like yellows and greens for it to really sell it in a miniature space. Because people will understand. Puke is probably one of those things that if you were to paint it in more of a realistic sense, it wouldn't track very well at scale. I mean, I'm assuming that if you have puke on a model, the model probably sells the story itself anyway, right? It's not like you just have puke on random normal Joe model where people are like, what's that part? Like he's probably hunched over and got vomit flowing out of his mouth or something. So I might be thinking a little bit more, but I like greens and yellows. I think that if you did something that had kind of I don't know, maybe a green brown base and then worked it up might work. You still want some shading to it, right? For those newbies that are here, you didn't know what you were getting yourself into, did you? Oh, I'll just go watch some painting on the internet. It'll be great. Oh, guess what I learned today, honey? Ugh. I learned how to paint puke. Ugh. I know more about the color of barf than I ever wanted to. For those of us in the US, after a day of turkey festivities, there's probably a lot of people that would like to not be discussing praying to the porcelain goddess right now. The chromatics of vomit. Very important things here, man. If you're really going to sell the story. I really like the golden yellow here. Yellows, as most people that have painted at all know, typically very translucent, and so they are perfect for this kind of painting where I want them to live alongside the other colors I've already put on the model. Because they just let those colors show through a lot easier. So never a bad thing to top off with yellow. That's why I use so much of the bright yellow green when doing underpainting. This guy, because I'm thinking his flesh will be kind of a greenish, grayish, greenish. I haven't really figured all that out yet since he's kind of a lizard guy. I'm not using the green underneath for people that might be wondering. Like if I were doing this as a traditional underpaint, I also would not be using the green right now because it would lose so much of its visibility underneath whatever green I glazed on top. So that's why we're not doing that. But the yellow part, I really like. The yellow tells more a story, not necessarily just of fatty tissue, but of warmth and the glow of warmth from the sun or whatever lighting you're putting the model into is also a secondary feature of painting this way. And since I don't know what I'm going to do with my top coat for flesh, we'll just start with this. Yellow's a good way to go. I'm painting your Greek ultramarines and having a nice Scotch single malt 15-year-old, and you're great company every time. Awesome. That's, man, what a great way to paint, right? You just got some friends on the internet talking nonsense, being nerds, saying stupid stuff most of the time. That's me, not you. And then you got your Scotch, your brush in hand, and a prayer, right? A dream and a prayer, a dream of some ultramarines, and a prayer you don't slip. My kind of fun. Sounds like date night. That's pretty gruesome. Not gonna lie. Start to get his face to take a little bit better shape with that last pass on the highlights. See his grimace. He's all toofs. Very toofy. Is that a marble slate? It's a piece of glass. Just glass that's painted gray on the bottom. And why not a wet palette? I love my cat says. I don't like wet palettes. They dilute your paint. And I'm always wanting to make sure that the paint on my palette is exactly the way it came out of the bottle or as close to it. So that every time I go in with my brush, I tend to use just the moisture on my brush. And I leave more moisture on my brush, the thinner I want the paint to be, less moisture on my brush, the more consistently vibrant and opaque I want the paint to be. So I will, every time, go over, we've got a video over on our YouTube channel. I'll get my brush wet, right? And however much water, this is a number 3, so it's not going to hold a ton of water, but you can see it's all wet, right? I don't wipe it on anything. I don't squeegee it on the side of the cup or anything. I basically just take the cup, right, with my abusively dirty paint water. I rub it up against the side real quick, and then I pull the brush out, and that's how it comes every time. I don't worry about wiping it on the side, flicking it on the side of the cup. It just comes out with a ton of water. Now, if I just use that much water, let's go into, what do I have still here? I go in and I touch the side of my yellow. I just kind of grab the side of the paint. I don't ever put the brush directly into the droplet of paint. I don't want to dilute the droplet. I pull a little tail, what I call a tail, out to the side. And so now I've got this yellow very, very thin, and I can do a really nice glaze with that, right? Just over the top of that magenta, right? And I can just get a really, really nice smooth glaze with a lot of water. But I didn't have to change the droplet of paint in order to do that glaze. The brush was all of the thinning, right? If I get my brush wet again, all that water in it again, but I wipe it a couple times on my paper towel, then I pull a drop off of the droplet of paint, and now I've got yellow the way you see me painting with it on the model. I've got a much more controllable, vibrant, kind of middle density, I would say. It's still semi see-through if I do it this way, right? Because of the yellow pigment, so you can see some of my tattoo through it still, right? rather than just having a brush that's almost dry. But if I wipe my brush nearly dry and then go over into that same puddle of paint, then when I paint with it, right, I can get it to where it's more opaque, right? Still is going to show yellow pigment is never going to be completely opaque, but you can see less of the line here, more of the line here, and then this would show all the line. That's all done with the same droplet of paint. I can't do that as well on a wet palette because over time, then the droplet itself becomes more diluted. As you work your paintbrush into it, you bring water up from underneath and it dilutes. So if your brush has water, the palette has water, the paint's got too much water, eventually you wind up with a paint that can't do what you did with your first brush stroke on your 10th brush stroke. So I always go with a dry palette. When I travel, I use just a piece of palette paper. I use Gray Matters palette paper. As you can imagine it by its name, it's just gray palette paper. The reason for that is that the white background, I try to tell people don't ever use anything that's white to put your paint out on. It makes all your paint seem darker than it really is. It's just a visual phenomenon. Anything next to white looks darker than it really is. And so you would choose and maybe mix your paints incorrectly on the palette based on that. So get something that's gray or tan work, something that's kind of neutral in its both its vibrancy and its overall hue. I like the gray. It's plentiful to find. Like I said, there's a company called Gray, or I don't know what the company is, Soho, but they call it Gray Matters palette paper, and it works great. And then this glass palette is just on Amazon. I don't remember what it's called. A lot of people in chat have picked them up over the years. $30 emails. Yikes. We talk about that a lot, right? Because we don't usually do stuff like this that we're doing on Black Friday. We don't ever do sales. And here we are doing a sale over Black Friday. And we've been like, okay, what's the right amount of email? We don't ever spam people with email. And so when you want to do a sale, you're like, well, we don't want people to miss it, right? Because the other side of that is like, how come we didn't know about your sale? It's like, well, we sent an email once. So I think we're sending a total of 4 over the week. We'll see how that goes. So far, the sale's been great, but we just don't want people to feel like we're spamming them. I always hate that because I'm with you. I don't want you to send me 30 emails to say buy your stuff. I get it. But I also don't want to miss the email for places that I really like, and I don't always check all that email or it goes to spam. So it's a tough world, man. It's a tough world we live in. Trying to figure out what is the right prescribed amount of times to try to contact your customers. I guess it's all in how you contact them too, right? We get tons of people that are like, your ads are all I see on Facebook. And I immediately go into wanting to apologize. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. That really sucks. I hate it. And they're like, I'm so happy that it's not for penis enlargement or, whatever the heck else Meta decides to spam you with. Whatever the next pharmaceutical or conditions you don't have. Banditoot, awesome. Yeah, your extended paint warranty. We should start doing that. Hi, this is Jason from Monument Hobbies. We'd like to talk to you about your extended paint work, your studio's extended paint warranty. If I could zoom in, you'd see. I mean, you could probably see just how messy I'm being. None of this is supposed to be precise, so to speak. It's supposed to be textured, and I'm doing some precise texturing, but in a lot of cases, the sculpt itself has got quite a bit of texture on the skin. So I'm just trying to ride that wave. Great example of how colors work together on the model. Good. Yeah, you can, when doing coloring like this, I tend to do crazy starts for models that, the I don't know if it's a claim to fame, but a lot of people would be like, I came in here and that thing was pink and, jade, dark jade, and looked like complete butt. And then I walked away to make a sandwich and came back, and holy hell, how did you do that? Because it's all about kind of using the colors for what they are, using them for their temperature, using them for, you know, the undertone they're going to give you in certain cases, more so than thinking in terms of, okay, what does my ultramarine blue need to look like? When we did our ultramarine, we started it with burnt sienna, and people are like, why would you start blue with burnt sienna? And then when they saw the underpinning of kind of rusty color that gave once you started painting the blue over the top, they were like, oh, they immediately kind of started to understand. And that's what I'm really trying to kick into gear for people, is to show you that being able, like I said at the beginning, the top of the hour, when I said that, what I really love about painting in general is the exploration of color through the tactics I employ is the most fun for me. And I think that's really what, if you can just get a little bit out of that, you can see how this, I don't know if you want to call it painterly application. It's just sloppy. I'm just being sloppy as I push color around the model and trying to push brighter colors towards highlight areas, and then the midtones in the pink is kind of the blood, the flush areas of flesh, and then a shadow. And then I just picked the greenish shadow because, if he's going to be green, that works. Could have done purple. It was sitting on top of brown. These models were primed ages ago, and they were primed in black brown, our black brown primer. So not as much that I needed to do because they already had a dark color that I was happy with on them. So the purple wasn't as necessary. An ogre begging for yellowy skin. Yeah, you can imagine. Like, I'll keep working this up. We'll do another highlight on it of, I don't know if we'll do like pale yellow or bismuth yellow or something to give me some brightness to go over so I can really get values high on the top parts, because yellow is a bright value. So I'm not really reducing my application of yellow as I go down the model, because I'm using it for hue and temperature as well as vibrancy right now. So you'll notice that my value scaling isn't really on point as a composition, because I'm going to be just as bright on the bright spots down at the ankle with the yellow as I am at the top of the head. So it's a little patchwork quilt when you do it this way. So I'll need to go to a brighter color to get my value sketch done right, and stay in the yellow if I can. We'll talk about that as we go. Hopefully, like I said, this is my day off, so I'm just kind of having fun. So again, I apologize if I'm missing questions or if you're talking to me and I'm not answering your specific thing. Please don't be mad at me, especially if you're new around here. I love having new folks around. It's a rough day to catch us new, only because I don't have my producer here. I keep talking about Chris like he's a thing in a box. I forgot my producer at home. Chris is not a thing in a box. Although, can you help me remember that? And let's get like a thing in a box going for him. So when he does come back, we have something fun for him that he won't understand at all. Hey, it's thing in a box. Am I ever mixing my underpainting colors together? Tangent. How do you mean mixing together? Like wet blending on the model, or mixing on the palette, or just combining the colors? Generally not when I'm underpainting. I kind of need the contrast between color and color. So my normal way is like a dark purple, a red oxide, and a bright yellow green for human flesh tones, no matter what the shade of flesh tone would be. But for humans, um, I would do purple, dark purple, right? And then a red that is, I like red oxide lately. It works really well. But it could be burnt red. It could be orange red. It could be as bright as you want it. I like red oxide. It's kind of right in a good middle value range. And then bright yellow green. And the bright yellow green performs the job that the golden yellow is doing right now. And I don't mix those. If I'm working fast, sometimes they mix on their own, but the goal is not to really get blending done, because if you're underpainting and then you're going to overpaint with a color, the overpaint color tends to wash out any of the blends you did before, so they're a waste of time. The overpaint color will blend those colors for you. That's what it does. It blends all of the colors underneath it together, and then also desaturates them with its own color, so they become less visible because you're putting a paint over the top, but you can't see where they separate either, so they blend, right? So that's my thing, just for speed. Could you? Yeah, you could blend all these colors much better and spend more time on it. If you were doing more layering and not glazing for your overpaint, that might help, right? So that you're not fighting a rough blend someplace that you catch later on. It really just, as you learn to do this more, you'll kind of find your own stride on what works best to get your composition working the way you want it to. I love texture and kind of heavy-handed brushwork a lot, on flesh especially. Not necessarily on armor and stuff. Depends on what the material is. Leather, flesh, stone, wood, stuff like that. I like a lot of texture, and it lets me be have a lot more fun painting. Not be anything different, but have a lot more fun painting, I think, because I can just use very rough, fast, loose brushstrokes. I call it painting loose. I love that. It's more free form. Feels more uh, freeing, if that's a thing. That's very hippy dippy to say that. I don't know that I'm looking for. I want to be free when I paint. I just want to sing to the hills. It's not like that, but do 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 do. You finish furniture and a pet peeve is somewhat paint name. Oh yeah, heck yeah. Green, yellow, purple. Any recommendations on a workup for underpainting of Emperor's Children with fluoro pink being your brightest color? Um, I always will go dark purple. I think dark purple or Payne's gray even can work really, really good for a cooling off of the warmth of the pink that you're going to. So something dark purple, purple, because it's a blue and a red, it can lean either way. When you put it into the red, when you paint it underneath a red model, the purple becomes the cool version of itself, starts to move more blue in its visual. When you put it underneath a cool color like blue, it becomes a more red version of itself. The same purple, right? Now you could get a more red purple to really boost that, but so purple is a great one that you'll hear me like a broken record say start your shadows with dark purple or something similar almost all the time. I use royal purple a lot. Um, so purple is great. Payne's gray is the other one. Payne's gray is fantastic. It's like a blue black. So it can give you a very dark contrast to all of your colors no matter which direction you go. It will not give you as much cool visual as the dark purple or a dark blue would, but it's still great, and I use it on lots of stuff. That's what, when doing the red on my Space Marines, that's all Payne's gray and the darkest shadows, right? And then into the plum, and then eventually into the red. So I love that. So I think that would work. And then build up to your fluorescent pink over the top of that. Somebody had mentioned if you do yellow somewhere in that, then the fluorescent pink will become red. So be careful with that. Depending on if you're really looking for pink, I would not use yellow underneath it because the fluoro is a very translucent color. So that over yellow is going to give you more of a reddish tint. If you're really going for pink like that Slaneshi pink, then don't use yellow. You might be able to use pale yellow, but that'll warm the pink up even then. So think in those terms. I like white blue, believe it or not, under the fluorescent pink. It works amazing, right? Something that is actually a cooler tone of an off-white, but you can always use like neutral, bright neutral gray and stuff like that too. Yeah, you got to remember that when mixing paint, it is a subtractive mixing type, not additive. And so when you're using thin acrylics, whether fluorescents or otherwise, you're always battling the fact that a lot of times what happens is you're going to get colors that weren't necessarily on your, to-do list if you're not careful. Because you're like, oh yeah, the yellow under the pink would be bitching, and then it turns red, right? You're still thinking you'll get a pink outcome, and it's not quite pink. So just be careful with that, right? By subtractive mixing, it means that you're going to see the color that the eye interpolates out of the subtracting of one pigment by laying another pigment over the top of it. So the easiest example is blue and yellow make green, right? It doesn't. They never mix like light does. Two frequencies of light give you a third frequency of light. That third frequency of light and additive mixing, which is what we talk about when we do photo and video or RGB, right? When you're doing Photoshop, you put all of the colors together, you get white. In the world of subtractive mixing, you don't ever get white by mixing colors together, right? That's not a possibility. So you're never creating a new color. You're subtracting the ability to see all of the color you just put another color over the top of, and your eye sees a third color because of that. All right, I think we got most of the stuff here. Good enough? Good enough? Good enough for government work? Yeah. I like it. All right, let's go to a brighter color. Now, again, I'm just playing. We could stop at any time and wind up with a really cool color of skin. I'm thinking I want to go to a brighter yellow, but I could go to something else. What else do I have that would go over the top of golden yellow and do the kind of effect I'm looking for? I could go to like a grayish, but it's not going to have the intensity, right? Bright warm flesh might be the answer. Or the warm flesh, or dark warm flesh won't work. I think warm flesh is the way to. It gives us a kind of a yellow, but it's a creamy yellow. Does that make sense? Creamy yellow, desaturated a bit more, has a little bit of a peachy nature, like a fleshiness to it, which I think is going to work well here, as opposed to just a pale yellow. I use pale yellow on like gold non-metallic. It feels lifeless, whereas this has some warmth to it, but it's still brighter than the yellow. Why are there people here? There's a car out front. They're coming to get me, chat. I don't want to get got. I don't know who that is. I don't know who that is. They're on their phone. Is it somebody from chat bringing me a pizza? Could that be it, chat? Is it one of you? Oh, look how good that looks. I like that a lot. Ryan Scurvy, is it really you? Is it really you? Whoever it is, they're on their phone, so they could be watching the stream. Is it really you? I'm the only one here, and we don't have any paint here. Even if I had people here, our new location is where all of the paint is for purchase. This is just our admin and studio now. We don't have a customer facing part of this building anymore. Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha. I heard no Alexa's order to order pizza. Alexa, order me a pizza. Ha ha! He looks lost. Yeah, he kind of does. He's just kind of walking around with his phone in his hand. That's why I was thinking maybe it was somebody that Jen's looking at the cameras. We have the security camera. She can see everything. This was the right color choice. I like this a lot. I got to be careful because this color is bright enough that it will desaturate everything into a mess if I'm not real careful with it. But so far, I like this. Use that fine point to just kind of highlight some of the wrinkles in the skin. Some real wrinkles and some I faked. That works really well. Are we feeling it, chat? Now it looks like this could be the color of his skin, right? Like now I'm thinking, wow, this might be the way to go. It's a little brighter than I was thinking, but that's not bad. Will any of the colored primers come in brush on? Probably not. It's not something I've given much thought to. It's doesn't mean we couldn't. Just not something that I'm the car's still out there. It's just not something I've thought about. Yeah, I was gonna say for like Nurgle flesh or something. This is pretty gruesome. It's a little more yellow than you're used to, right? I'm not leaving a bunch of I'm not getting a bunch of green out of it because only the dark jade, and the dark jade starts to look black, which is why you use it, right? It's all of the shadow colors you'll find me using are meant to appear as black, but with a nuance to them once you get other color over the top. So the jade doesn't survive as well as a green in this case because it is so dark. But I'm really liking this. If I'm careful like that, I can leave enough of like the magenta on the elbow to really get the effect that I want. So I'm being a little bit more careful with the application of this highlight, right? Doing smaller brush strokes, stippling, get the color in there as opposed to just slapping it on. When I start to see that I'm liking this, I gotta tighten up the stroke. Otherwise, I'll overdo it. I just know myself. Have we come up with a date for the stream where I teach Chris NMM? No, not yet. That's up to Chris. I know Chris is sincere about his want to learn. I do not want to interrupt that sincerity with forcing a date, if that makes sense, right? It's not something like, as fun as Chris is when he's pretending to be me and introducing Bag of Krill on the stream and stuff. I don't want him to feel like he's got to be, dance monkey dance. So we'll not force it, kind of a thing, right? When he tells me, you know what, now's the time, then we'll do it. Man, I really, really like that. That's working pretty good right there. Yeah, right. It does look kind of radioactive. Like definitely been out in the sun too long. Wait, that was Chris. Wait a minute. I know you. Dr. Rhino, what's going on, man? You just sent me a picture on Discord. What? I'm painting. I'm painting on my day off. Look at me. Look at me. Warm Flesh was the absolute right choice here. Like I said, you can see as the paint dries on my thumb how I get a brighter value, but it works with that yellow because it has just enough of a pinkishness when it lays over it to keep it fleshy, right? You got to be a little careful when you start doing these types of things that the color you'll get out of your not mix, wrong word, because I'm not mixing color here. It's like we talked about, it's just showing through. Would be a little gray or, move it into a world where it doesn't feel like skin at all. But this I'm really enjoying. I can even go a slight bit brighter if I want to, if I really want to push some vibrancy onto this guy, which might be the way to go. But so far, I really like this. I'm being able to use the Warm Flesh to just do some very, very small details here that survive pretty well. He's got these spikes. I'm going to go ahead and highlight the spikes in the skin. I don't know if they're spikes or warts or deformities. They're not big enough to really feel like they need to be painted like bone or anything. So I'll just kind of highlight them like that. Big difference from this, yeah? Me likey likey. It's going to be hard to get the metal on him to look right with this if I'm not careful. I'm pushing this brighter than I might normally before doing the metal, but I still think we can pull it off. I think rusty metal can still be a good looking thing here. We'll see as we get there. Now remember on the chest here, I faked this texture, so kind of pull that in like that. I've got my brush flattened out using the chisel and then just stippling with the chisel to make little bitty lines on there and on the clavicle. What I assume can only be a clavicle. Sugarino, what's going on? Yeah, this is just a model I grabbed out of we have a room, a closet of doom, I guess we could call it. That is, there's a million models in there. It's insane. I wanted to start the stream at 1:30. It started at 15 minutes after 2 because for 45 minutes or nearly 45 minutes, I stood in that room staring at models, not knowing what I wanted to paint. It was total analysis paralysis, like somebody called me out on earlier. It was insane. It was too much. There's just too much in there. It's insane. And so I pulled this guy early and then walked around with him in my hand looking for other things. And it was either this or a Lehman Russ tank for my Solar Auxilia. And a couple people in chat were like, paint this guy. So here we are. Here we are, having fun. Glad we did. Again, just tiny pinpricks of this bright color will be all we need. This is where a lot of people overdo it. Right? I don't have the zoom because Chris isn't here, but you can see just teeny weeny little dots of light in there to get the job done. Otherwise, you over brighten and you start losing what we call your value scale. And then you have to go to a brighter color or do a glaze over this to darken it down. And I'm not really interested in that right now. I'm not really picking a direction of light on here just from above, just as a gaming figure. I'm not really trying to be overly dramatic with my light source or anything. You don't always have to do anything super specific. Just shade based on the physicality of the model. If there's things covering areas up, shade. The closet of shame. It's a whole office. It's a whole 15 by 10 room that is filled with shelving and way too many models. There's as many built as there are in boxes, which is even worse thing about it. Agrippa, thank you. All the butt sets they wanted. They have been flying, but I think lots of people are getting their butt sets. We pulled some out of stock to send to Canada. If you're one of our amazing Canadian community members, we will be shipping some to our Canadian distributor on a consignment thing so that we don't even have to wait for them to order it. We're just going to ship them up there so that they have them. And hopefully then they will be able to turn those out to retailers very quickly. We still don't have a Canadian presence open on the web, so we can't sell them direct yet, but that will help a lot because I know a lot of people were bummed that in Canada there wasn't a really good resource to get them to you other than say, well, pay the ridiculous shipping from the United States. And we didn't feel real comfortable with that long term, so we're going to send some up to our Canadian distributor, and they may very well have the last ones in existence by the time they get there. See how the post goes. When is Adepticon? End of March. End of March, beginning of April. It's always that last weekend. Usually, I think occasionally it's like the weekend before then, but this time it's the last week in March, which winds up being through like the I don't know. I want to say like the 3rd of April. I don't know. Catch me lying. What is the base coat on this mini? I mean, what is under purple? There's no purple on him. It was black brown as the base. That's what's the primer was the black brown, and then over the black brown we did dark jade. So that's what looks like the shadow on the flesh. I haven't done dark jade anywhere else. It's all just the black brown, dark jade, and then the dark hot pink, and then golden yellow, and now the warm flesh. And I don't know what comes next. We'll have to think about it. I think it might be some green in the shadows, like a little bit of a wash kind of thing. Maybe I'll bust out the speed paint medium and play with it. Would be a good test for that. See if we can get a little bit of the green back into the shadows, since I don't think I'm going to want to alter the highlight color or the what we view as the color of the skin. I'm liking where we're going. You know, like I mentioned, sometimes you find a situation arise as you're playing with color and you're like, yep, let's keep that. And I feel like I'm there. I feel like I really like where we're headed here. So I'm doing these highlights with a little bit more detail. We can keep them. But I still reserve the right to do a little bit more with the shadows and alter what the color appears like. Maybe it won't be so yellowy if I do a little bit of green in the shadow and such. Having fun. Good palette cleanser to be able to just grab a model that doesn't have to be for anything and can be something you work on fast, and maybe you learn a new way or two to use color for other projects you might do. Yeah, Wirehead, I know it's a shame. We just said on Wednesday, we were like, what if we just sent some up there just to make sure that, we're not sending a ton, a few hundred, but a way for people that don't want to fight with Canada Post and all that stuff. We hate it. Like our closest neighbor to the north is great, and they can't buy as easily from us as somebody in Botswana could. Never made sense. But we are working on it still. We have Monument Canada set up from a corporate standpoint, so that helps us a lot. The website just needs to get finished. The warehousing needs to get set up, but we're working on all that in the background of everything else we're doing. So it's almost a feline looking face the way this part comes together. And it look kind of feline. Very quiet, sorry. Lots of little bitty doots that I want to get right here. Catch those textures. Most of which I set up with the early brush strokes on this. There's not a lot of that in the sculpt. So all of that dash texture that you see along there is just me painting it, but it feels right on this guy. So we're gonna try our best to leave it. No, he's gone. Guy from the parking lot. I can see him right here. I mean, he probably can't see us because we have tinted shades and everything on the windows and blinds, but I can see my car through the door that's usually behind Chris there, and then he parked right next to my car. But he's gone now. I wasn't hiding. I'm not gonna go let him in. I don't have anything here. Yeah, it feels like the guy, like the Gorn from Star Trek or something like that, like a big beefy Gorn. You would think trade between USA and Canada would be a literal non-issue. Well, in the past, it has been a non-issue. The trade part of it, the shipping part of it, is always a scam, and that is always because, I mean, USPS has its own issues, but Canada Post has always been a real horrid industry, from what I understand, dealing with outside mail vendors. Because Canada Post doesn't exist outside of Canada, as you would imagine, and so other shipping agencies put it on the shore, and then Canada Post takes it the final mile to people's houses a lot of times. And they wind up in financial problems and start charging those companies a lot more to handle that final destination delivery, which they need to make sure that it's profitable for them, but they price themselves out of the market very quickly, right? Right now we're seeing other problems too. We're seeing, obviously, the tariff situation. UPS has defaulted to, we don't know what's going on. We're just going to charge the most that we can get away with charging legally, so that nobody gets a situation where we didn't charge enough and they have to owe governments money. DHL and FedEx seem to be doing a much better job of that because they're better handled, I guess, at doing duties on small shipments. But they've still been messing up too, so nothing's great. We learned a lot more about this than we ever wanted to when we opened up our European office. I am an idiot, and I thought, oh, well, of course, it's Europe. Of course, they have great posts, right? They got to have like a Euro post or something. There may be a company called Europost. It is not what that says. You have a million countries that all have their own postal service, and none of them work with one another. So it's like, oops. Dark Jade's looking great as a shadow. Yeah, definitely, right? Dark Sea Bin, same, right? Dark Sea Bin would be really good here too. I looked at using that. I thought that the Dark Jade might have a little bit more green that would survive the brightness if I decided to go with something like I was thinking faded green, right? I pulled out faded green here initially as a color, but now that we've kind of gone away from that, I just wanted there to be a little bit more intensity to the green, so I picked the Dark Jade. But Dark Sea Ben would have been a great choice here too. What's stealing the show is the warm flesh, though. It's the perfect highlighter here so far. People have been asking a lot on stream lately, what things can you do to practice to get better as a new painter? And what you see me doing right here is one of the best things you can do. It doesn't have to be on a model, right? But practice getting itty bitty lines put together in a way that you can see that texture, it survives. You don't just wind up with a bunch of stuff that bleeds together, because that will teach you that you have to get the right consistency of paint in order for it to not bleed together, right? You can imagine if your paint's too thin, doesn't matter how good your line is, it'll start to spread out as it settles on the model, and it will be just a blob of color. So you'll have to work on consistency of paint as well as steady nature of your hand and your hand-eye coordination to be able to very quickly, well, I don't know you have to go fast, but be able to get, you know, uh, I'm going to air quotes the parallel part because I don't know that my lines are parallel, but they feel like they are. Probably a dumb question, but your guys' taupe primer, what types of colors would work on it if I wanted to use it as a zenithal highlight? I've been using it under everything. All of these models were done with taupe over, these were taupe over dark purple. So that's the taupe. And then I dry brush these with bright ivory to bring out more of the detail before we do the speed paint on the top of them, right? So it was taupe and then bright ivory over the top, and any color would be great on this. I think it's better than white because it doesn't desaturate the color like white does. The problem when you go over the top of white is that it starts to, I say bubblegum, it's not the truth, but it will start to desaturate those colors and give you the more pastel version of themselves if you go over them thin. Whereas something that has a little bit of yellow nuance to it, the taupe does, the bright ivory does, it'll maintain some warmth on the colors that need it and not strip all the color out of those that aren't even worried about it being warm. So I think the taupe is great. I'm going to use it for damn near everything that I do where I'm doing a zenithal. I know it doesn't quite give you the value, right? It's not going to be as bright as white. So that's why I did the dry brush of bright ivory. You might dry brush white, so you get a little bit of white. Or you could even use the airbrush and give yourself a little bit of white across the top of the head and shoulders, and then you have everything else in taupe. There's a lot of ways you could use it. Think of it as your bright gray, right? Except it has a little bit of warmth to it. So I think any color, man. Speed for painting is, yes, it's a byproduct of experience and muscle memory and confidence. And, speed is not something. That's why I've always hated the term speed paint. We kind of have to use it now, right? Because there's products literally labeled speed paint. And because it's such a thing in the world of content creation where people are like, paint your minis faster. And I'm like, well, I've never been one to say that painting minis fast had any noticeable quality attached to it, except for when you need to, have stuff ready for your local tournament or to get ready for that game you want to play with your buddies. Then yeah, then being able to paint fast is good, but it sometimes isn't about speed. It's about getting your models to a state where you are comfortable with them on the table, even before they're finished, right? For me at least, right? I can get models that I can quickly get to where they look like we've done more work than we really have, so that I can put them on the table and play with them, give them a quick coat of varnish, play a game or two with them, and then come back and still finish them, right? I don't ever want to sacrifice quality for speed, is my personal belief. That's why I've always kind of shirked the whole, paint faster. It's like finding speed through confidence and experience is a lot tougher than it sounds, because not everybody gathers that information and turns it into that kind of bespoke knowledge as quickly as the next guy. So, you can watch somebody, an amazing streamer or YouTuber who does, like, look, check it out, I did these in 10 minutes, which is always a lie, by the way. I don't care who it is, I'm calling you out. Nobody paints their models in 10 minutes and gets any kind of quality. It takes you longer to set your paints up on your desk and get ready to get going than 10 minutes. So that's just not a feasible thing. But at the end of the day, painting the models fast, it's like, yeah, but what does that come with? Does that come with 10,000 hours of experience behind that, so that the decision making? I mean, hell, I got paralyzed for 45 minutes just figuring out what model I wanted to paint, right? The problems are real. Not quite as much of the warm flesh on the toes, but enough to bring out some detail there. It's not going to get above freezing here in Chicago next week. How scared should I be for your wizard's butt that's on the way? Not at all. I wouldn't think. Have it shipped where you're going to be. Don't ship it to, your front porch and let it sit out in freezing weather all day until you get there, is what I always tell people. Make sure that you're there to get it, but it shouldn't be a problem at all. All of our paints are triple freeze thaw, tested at lab conditions prior to making each batch. So it's not something that we typically have a lot of worry for. It doesn't mean that we don't see problems if, if for some reason your shipment is delayed and because there's a truck stuck on a frozen highway for 18 hours, then anything's possible at that point. Nah, even in a box in an unheated truck, it still won't usually get to where it freezes. We test them to whatever, minus 14°C for prolonged periods. Yeah, definitely Zilfer. Yeah, it can happen to every water-based product if something is allowed to freeze and crystallize, like turn to ice. Crystallization happens. That's a chemical process. There's no returning from that, right? Because there are portions of the chemical makeup of the paint that just can't rebound from crystallization, turning to ice. They can melt out, but they're still not going to work the same way. The polymers and the resins and things like that are not going to like that. So, when you have a frozen paint that is allowed to freeze solid, yeah, you're pretty screwed. But the way that we make our paint, the formulation resists that to the best that it possibly can. And we test the formula surviving through being frozen, not crystallization frozen, but in those frigid extremes, thawed, and then frozen again 3 times. Well, the freezing it tastes. I can't speak to that, even though I'm here alone and nobody will yell at me immediately. They'll yell at me later. Do not eat the paint. Haven't you been following along? Look at how different that looks, right? A great A/B test right there. Painting on rocks is so refreshing. Like on like flat face pebbles and stuff. Is that what you're talking about? Or are you painting terrain for war games that are rocks? Wizard's butt margarita. Do not. What do you think of the idea of Procurl shot glasses? So, uh, I have no comment for that. I may be working on something you will be very ecstatic about in the near future, though. We have all sorts of crazy things happening here. '26 is going to be a lot of fun if I have my way. I don't talk about it a lot, but that was. Did you see what I did there? Did you see me rotate the brush around like I tell you to do? We tell you to do it. We don't ever really talk about it when I actually do it. But that was a. You saw me there have to rotate the brush to find the chisel point of it again, so that I could pull these. Quick textures. And you can probably tell how I like to do my textures with really quick smacks of the brush. I get better shape of the line that way. Ah, too much. Might notice that there's a couple times where my hand's shaking when I'm holding them out. It's because of my pinky finger. My pinky finger doesn't have anything to grab onto, so I do this. And I pull my pinky and my ring finger tight to my hand while I'm holding it, because I only hold it with my forefinger, middle finger, my thumb most of the time, right? These fingers don't have anything to do. And I'll pull them in like this, and they'll start to cramp because I'm sitting on them. And so if I notice my hand shaking, I release my pinky. I relax my pinky and my ring finger and just lay them straight out, and then my hand stops shaking. So if that happens to you, it doesn't make sense all the time that it's your pinky finger, but it for some reason does. There's probably some anatomical reason why the muscle in your arm spazzes out when your pinky finger is like bent like that for long periods of time. But I don't know it. Why don't I use a painter's handle? I have some laying around, right? I've got some that were made for us by, I don't remember this guy's company name. I don't know if he's around anymore. He made me some magnetic ones a long time ago. They're pretty cool. I just don't ever use them. I typically use a cork, and that gives me more to hang on to. But my pinky, it still never does anything for my pinky. And it's probably something I like, right? It says your order has shipped, but there was no tracking information like usual. That's odd. If it said it was shipped, there should be tracking information. It may have been that, well, no, there should be no matter what. Because if they've got it boxed, even if they boxed it up and it wasn't picked up by the post, it should still have that info with it. So hold tight. You know, the crew isn't in today. They'll be back in on Monday. So customer service can hack it if you haven't heard anything by then. Or I would give it to the end of the day on Monday, actually. Just so when the group is back in and they're actually shipping and the post picks up, that it should get scanned information and all that stuff then. Trigger finger, cubital tunnel syndrome. How do you attach figures to your corks? The poster tack, same way you just said. You got to strip it off and start with fresh after now, every now and then, or what I do is what you see me doing here is I'll pull it with my the poster tack gets old, and it starts to stick and not come off, right? So at some point in time, it becomes too gummy. I don't know what that's a feature of, just age or too much paint in it. Because I fold over the prime, you know, it gets paint and primer on it. And I just fold it over. Eventually, it's got a lot of acrylic in there. But yeah, then I just freaking stick it on there and twist. Right when I'm pushing, I twist it on. So push it hard into the base and twist it at like I don't know, a few degrees, and then boom, it's on a handle now. This guy's pretty big, so he may flip off of this, but that feels pretty good. I really am still just holding the base, right? This allows me to do this, but I still keep my fingers here. If you feel like your hand oils are causing you problems with your painting and rubbing paint off, you can get cling wrap and wrap your model with cling wrap. You know, the kitchen stuff. And then you're never really touching the model. We used to do that here before production stole all my clean wrap, and now I don't have any. So they stole my stuff, chat. Bought some expert acrylics, but you're not sure where to start with them. Any advice on ways to practice or apply them? Just a damp brush and start painting with them. You don't have to do anything with the paint. Put it on your palette, treat it like a normal paint. It's not fluid, but it works the same way. Just get your brush damp, pull out a tail of the side of the paint, and then start painting. You'll find that you have way more pigment when you go to the model, so you get more vibrancy out of them. And then start playing with more water on your brush and diluting them down and glazing with them, because they're really exceptional at teaching you how to glaze, because they will have a ton of color. They're very forgiving, and most of the pigments are translucent. So they start with a much higher level of see-through, and then when you add a little bit of water to it, it really makes your glazing take off. So while being a little more advanced in general for how you would use them, they do not need an advanced painter to become very, very powerful for your process when trying to learn really cool things like blending, um, layering, any of your standard processes you're going to need to know. They work great for all of the basics. Dry brushing with them is great, believe it or not. There, some of them are a little translucent, like I said, so you might have to go a little bit heavier with the application if you want to dry brush, but they work great. That ability to start with less fluidity is really what makes that a key. Every painter we have let touch them is blown away by them. Some of the best painters in the world have come by the booth, especially in Europe, and sat down and spent time with them and have walked away just flabbergasted. They're like, how do you do that? How do you make a paint that has so much pigment and such a heavy body to it not give texture, act like a normal paint, um, and give the kind of results that we get? So they're really amazing. They lay very flat, so they don't obscure detailing like you might see with a traditional artist acrylic like that are built to mimic more of a oil paint feel than anything, right? They're made to give more texture for what's called peaking, so that when you put the paint on the canvas, you get more of a brush stroke that feels painterly that acrylics typically don't give. But we don't want that, obviously, as miniature painters. That's like the worst thing in the world for us, is to have texture on the model, unless you're doing something very specific. Warpgate, what's going on, man? We're painting a thing, a guy. Hope everybody's weekend is kicking off good. For those of you that are on your Thanksgiving holiday here in the US, your weekend has started already, hopefully. For everybody around the world, it's Friday for you. Hopefully you're about to embark on a nice weekend. Got any cool plans? Hope you get some relaxation. Unless, of course, you're going like F1 racing or something and aren't looking to relax, you're looking to tear it down, then by all means, I hope you tear it down as safely as possible. If you're going to go floor punch at a hardcore show, I hope you have fun. Print the programmer, what? A gremlin like Stripe? What? The model does? On call prior to going to work, 16 hours due to workers missed flight tomorrow. Oh no. Got to be on call for people that can't be there. That's even worse. Well, hopefully it is as low stress as being on call and working weekends can be. I'm here working on my vacation as solidarity for all my people around the world that do not have a holiday right now. That's actually not why I'm here. I'm here because I wanted to paint, but it sounds good, right? Up with the people. I don't like missing so many streams, and this time of the year always has a lot of stream misses for us. This year even more than normal because of all the shows in Europe that we've been going to. But the ability to take some of the time on holiday, since Jen and I don't travel for the holidays, is nice to just come in and do this. Just a little free time to paint something I didn't care. Not that I don't care about this model, but doesn't have to be painted. I can just do what I want. I like that. All right. I'm liking this. I think we need a little bit more brightness over here. Wait, that paint was way too wet for some reason. I'm not sure what that was. All right. I like it. A transformed gremlin. Oh yeah. They were like more like Godzilla green though, right? Browns and greens and stuff. Or am I thinking wrong? They were all furry, lovable until you got them wet or fed them after midnight. Wasn't that the thing? It's strange not having Christopher. This is not a normal stream. This is a Jason solo stream. They happen very rarely. Yeah, now we can think about playing with some other colors. Somebody had asked about expert acrylics. I could use some of the expert acrylics to glaze a little bit on here, right? I love the idea when I do lizard skin, lizard-ish skin, characters that are lizardy, like this guy is supposed to be. We got a lot of texture and stuff like that going on with him. I like being able to have various colors, like at the appendages, like as you go towards the hand, having it shift to a little bit of a different color, right? The feet be a little bit of a different color. Only because I find that a lot in nature when you have lizards, like they go out to the feet, and the feet either get darker or brighter, So there might be something we could play around with there. I kind of want to do another pass of brighter up around the shoulders, though. Too, I don't know. Is there a new set of expert acrylics coming out? There's 6 more colors coming out. 6 new colors coming out. I showed them off on stream, so no, you're not delusional. You can distract a gremlin with a rubber chicken. We have a rubber chicken. It's more like the good old days of the slow fuse streams. Yes. Yeah, 6 more colors to finish out the line at 22 is our goal. 22 is what the rack is built around, and there's not a lot of other colors I would want to bring there. We're bringing in a scarlet red, um, a flesh tone, which is a red oxide tint. I don't know where they went. I don't have them here anymore. Ah. Christopher moved. Oh, here they are. Here they are. Eh. Eh. Right. So we've got chrome oxide green, scarlet red, right? Alizarin crimson. Sorry. And then a quinacridone single pigment magenta. That was kind of demanded by everybody in the art scene when we came out with the first ones, because the process magenta has white in it so that you can mix it at opacity. This one will not be. This one will be more like our dark magenta in the Pro Acryl line. It's the same exact thing. So it'll be very transparent. The phthalo turquoise. Beautiful color. The Aerolide yellow. Aerolide yellow. Warm yellow is what it is. And then the red oxide tint, which is a nice peachy flesh tone. So give you some good head start colors. The magenta being a single pigment magenta. The crimson, the yellow, the green oxide, and then these two are hues, right? So good stuff. This is one we could use, right? The chrome oxide green we could use on this guy. What say you? This could be the thing that moves us towards green. I like it. Let's do it. What I was just going to say is people are asking about the expert acrylic, so we can show you. Don't do that. I'm just going to. I hate these lids for test bottles. They're horrible. Horrible, I tell you. All right. Like Grey Poupon. If you made all yellow, ochre, and cadmium red for the expert acrylics, you'd do a Zorn palette with them? Yeah. All right. All right. Get some of that and put it out here on the palette. Need a whole lot. Play around here. See what's going to happen here. Take a bunch of water, like I was talking about earlier, a bunch of water on my brush, and then just put a little puddle of water down there with my brush, and then grab a tail out into that puddle is what I'm doing. So I'm making another batch of paint over here, basically, so that the water doesn't intrude too much on the original paint. And then we have all of our color palette here, minus the brown and the dark jade I didn't put any on my finger. But now you'll be able to see what this effect would have glazing the expert acrylic over the top of that. See how we can move that into a greenish hue, but not necessarily have to... where can I start and practice with this? Let's do the back of the leg. That's really good because, like I said, these are so forgiving because even with the density and richness of pigment, just a little bit of water goes a long way to getting you such reduced opacity, but the pigmentation still has the color. Make an example, right? Like that's a definite difference, but it's going to let me build up to get it where I want it, as opposed to just overtaking the model instantaneously, which is super nice. You can see as I build up layers on my thumb, we'll get more opacity, but start with, I'm really liking this. And I don't have to cover the whole model, right? Because I like the mottled kind of texture that I got going on. I don't have to hit everywhere. I can leave some of the areas with just the magenta showing, some of the areas with the dark flesh highlight on there, or I can choose to cover it all up if I want. But I'm not going to worry about it too much. Like at the bottom of the foot, makes sense to have that kind of pressure that happens at the foot pad will build up blood vessel constriction there, and you'll get more flush area on the bottom of the foot, palms of the hands, things like that. So works pretty well. That looks pretty good. Blue doesn't fluoresce as well. It's just not capable of fluorescing well enough to get you what you want. And we didn't create the fluorescence for the actual fluorescing of the paint necessarily. Under UV, we created them to be very, very bright colors over white for things like OSL. And so for us, the blue didn't match what we wanted it to do. It was better as sky blue or transparent blue over white. So functionally, the blue didn't really make sense. It doesn't preclude us from ever releasing it. We have the test sample here. It worked just fine. It just that I only wanted to do a set of 6. And since the blue didn't really live up to what I wanted it, the purple worked a lot better. Right now that most of the material's off of my brush and I've got the shadow areas done where the green would be more prevalent, then I can come up here on the highlight areas and just kind of use this to go between the highlight and the shadow of the peck. So just like a normal paint, even though it's glazing, start it in the area right at the edge of the highlight and then take it down into the magenta and the dark jade and all that. I don't have to cover every color along the way. You can see how easy these are to work with. I'm not doing anything on the palette that I wouldn't do with just the regular liquid acrylics. All I've done is add a little bit of water off my brush, but I just get such a more even control of the glaze with the expert acrylics because they have such a density of pigment. It lets me kind of work these miracles with it. Come back and build up a second layer right along here on the peck. Do the same thing along all these areas. Just kind of pull from the edge of where I put my highlights, smack it with my finger to dull it down a bit, and really let the green settle along the area where the magenta is, which I think is working great. Brings just a little glow of green almost. And by glow, I don't mean like light glow. I mean like just a glow of haze of color. DeSantis, can you try another color as well? What do you mean? What other color you want to see? You can do whatever you want. Well, within reason. I'm not going to mess the model up just to push more color on it. But yeah, we can put more colors on here for sure. The nice thing about playing with glazes like this as overall filters is that the glaze is going to look completely different over each of these colors that I've done as the base. And so we're going to get spots that are going to shoot with more green, some where the green is going to get kind of hidden in and amongst the other colors. You're going to get a lot of modulation of color around the model when you glaze this way. Because we didn't just use a single triad or hue family for the skin tone, right? using the dark jade. The dark jade is really popping now. I don't know if that's showing on camera, but with this green filter over the dark green shadows, the dark jade is now making a big difference, right? That shadowing on the muscle is having a bigger contrast to the rest of the color around it than it did before. And also, unlike other artist acrylics, these have a matte finish. So doing things like what I'm doing right now, even breaking them down into a glaze, is not going to interrupt and create a satiny gloss on our model. I'm still going to be able to retain the matte finish that I've been using to my benefit on this to really get contrast going. That isn't going to get taken away from us or stripped out of the model by putting this on there. Nice, November. There's nothing better than like reorganizing your workstation in a way that you're super stoked with. This was a good call. Whoever started asking me about expert acrylics, great job. You take it these would go over metal as well too? Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah, 100% being able to put them over metallics or anything you like. Any type of glaze work, if you've been having trouble in the past with glazes, these will make you feel like a pro. I won't say instantaneously, everybody has their own learning curve, but these will make you feel way more confident with glazing almost immediately. No lie. Because like you can see, I've really wet the palette down, right? I am slopping with water on the brush when I go into the paint here. And I'm confident to even paint it into, specific areas rather than just, using it like a wash. And I'm getting great results out of it. It's doing a good job at kind of knocking a little bit of the contrast between the magenta and the other colors down a little bit, but still leaving enough of the magenta to allow it to do its job too. You'll notice I'm taking most of the material off on my thumb. This is a huge part of this that I remember to talk about a lot, but sometimes like today we don't talk about it at all, right? Is that by taking all this moisture off, I don't leave big droplets anywhere. I get a very consistent coverage of the thin paint as I go across the model here, right? What you don't want to do is create a bunch of material, a bunch of wetness on the model as you do this, that then you have to figure out where to move all that wetness to. It can wind up being super distressing to see a droplet of water on here that has color in it, because then you got to move that around or wick it up and it winds up leaving a stain or too much color someplace. Not bueno. I'll put a little bit on the top here and then hit it with my finger because I'm liking the way it's going into the cracks of the skin. You can kind of see it acting a little bit like a wash there. I'm liking that. And then I can come back and highlight that again. See, it's still allowing us to have the same kind of coloration that we started with, but knocking it down just a little bit in vibrancy with the green and adding that green in, which is a color we didn't have. We did in the shadows with the dark jade, but I'm really liking that. The effect is being a lot of fun. I'm going to grab some more paint. I've already used all of it. Again, just like with liquid acrylics, don't put out too much paint on the palette. Always use a little and then add more as needed. And spending the bulk of my glaze on the magenta areas and the shadows. I'm liking that. That was a really good choice. I'm glad we didn't choose to just do a straight underpaint and overpaint filter on this. I'm really liking all the nuanced color we're getting out of this by letting our, our bottom coats, our underpainting show through pretty dramatically. I think it works really well. Going back and cleaning up any of the areas that have very vibrant magenta or hot pink showing through. A couple of spots where a little bit intense. I really like that area up in there. The kind of flush nature of the skin across the abdominals is working really well. This side's all shadow. What do you think? That pretty good? Work pretty good? All right, somebody asked to do something in another color. What other color could we use here? I could, I've got a lot of contrast in my shadows. I would say that, we could do something like a Payne's gray in the shadow, but I think I've already got enough intense shadow that it's not really going to do us any good. You got to be careful with that. I've already got muscles that kind of live in islands because of the dark jade there. So I don't want to add too much more in darkness. I feel like my value is pretty good. I could maybe do some of the Payne's gray along the feet and the hands to give it the feel that they're color changing like I was talking about. We could do that. I think Payne's gray might be the way to go on that. I could also do something that turned those a little redder. Right? Like I said, just having the appendage, maybe the mask of the face and the forearms to the hands and the feet gain a little bit of difference in color might be kind of fun. I'm really digging this. For a quick sketch, this is looking pretty good. Let's grab Payne's gray. What else could be good? Sepia could be fun. I don't think violet gets me heavy. Do I have more paints up here? Aha, I do. Sepia. So I have sepia. That might be the key. I'll bring Payne's gray out too, but I think sepia might be the answer. Right? The sepia is a greenish yellowish brown, right? And so it has a lot of the color that were in it, but it would darken what we have up, which might be neat for the hands. So let's start there rather than the Payne's gray. Because there's a lot of non-metallic steel I have to do on here, and I kind of want Payne's gray as the basis for that. So let's leave that alone. Yeah, as I'm looking at it, I think you're right. I think warmer is better. God, if I could get somebody that would clean my palette, that would be kind of cool, huh? That was for Chris if he's watching. I don't think he's watching. I shan't. I gotta act like Chris is here. I shan't. Chris. I didn't even do it. Chat did it. Like olive flesh might work wonders for an edge highlight for him. Yeah, I think olive flesh is probably where I'll go. As a matter of fact, that was my first thought. After the warm flesh, I could, now that we've done the glaze of green, go back with just warm flesh as the brighter part too. So remember that when you go in and do a filter over the top of something you've highlighted, which I always recommend doing your filter after you at least have your first highlight done. And by first highlight, I generally talk about things as a base coat, right? Dark mid-tone, initial highlight, right? So base coat, not primer, base coat, your color, right? So dark purple. And then dark mid-tone, first highlight, final highlight. So think in terms of everything you paint having 5 colors. Now, you know, if it's a small item that can't fit 5 colors on it, you're going to take 2 of those out and wind up with 3. How do you do 3? Like this, you wind up with 3, right? So you're not always going to have 5, but in cases where you think that way, if you go to your base coat, dark mid highlight before you do any washes or filters, that's what I would suggest. Doesn't matter if you're dry brushing it on. The technique that you're applying it, airbrush, dry brush, or whatever, doesn't matter. It's just you generally want to get to that first highlight, right? Your dark highlight, if you will. Then you can do your filter. Then your next step is not to put your bright highlight over that. It's to put the same highlight you used before, right? Your first highlight on first, because it will now be brighter because you applied a filter over it. So whatever color was on there, let's say we use pink as a highlight over red, and that was your first layer, and then you were going to go to pale pink for your final highlight. You put pink on, you filter it down, and with a brown, let's say. Now your pink is darker because it has that filtered brown over it. No matter how thin it was, it's darker than regular pink. So now when you go back over it with pink, you get a blended highlight, I call it. You don't do the whole area again. You do half of each highlight with the pink again. And then it allows you for your final highlight to be in very small areas to get that real specular kind of highlight. Not saying that everything has to have a shine to it, but you'll find that your highlights look blended. It looks like you use 4 or 5 colors for your highlight when you do that, which is why I suggest it. So we might do the warm flesh again and then olive flesh. But the olive flesh then will be in just very small amounts. Okay? Make some sense? Right, hopefully everybody's getting to read that green on there. That was perfect. It was just a subtle shift of green. It keeps the yellowishness that we had. I think that works really, really well. It really brought the dark jade shadow out with that green over the top, which I love. Now I get the feel of that greenish lizardy feel. All right, so sepia. Again, brush filled with water. Put a puddle of water on here, then grab a tail out of the sepia, pull it to my puddle of water. Right? And then look at all the colors on my thumb palette and say, oh, look at that. That's what it's going to do. That's great, actually. That's going to be cool. Again, I usually start on areas I don't care as much about, like the back of the leg here. Oh, that's really nice, actually. That little bit of earthy tone is really cool. Sepia is such a good. This is what I did all those teeth that Christopher was like, "Oh my god, those teeth look amazing" on the work we just did. The sepia was the way I did the chompers on him. Just a wash of sepia over the top, and it worked great. Again, just lots of water. Remember, always better to thin more than you think you need so that you can build layers up to get it where you need it to be, rather than not thinning enough and ruining your work, right? Because you're about to put paint over the top of painted stuff, but that's perfect. Now he has this long skirt on, so I don't get to show a transition like I would normally there, but we'll do it on the arms. On the arms, again, add a little bit more water, pull a little bit more paint, have it be really thin. And then I'm just going to kind of maybe stipple a little bit at the bottom of the muscles. Use it as a stipple, create my own texture with it, so I'm not just slopping it on, and then start slopping it on as I get away from my texture spot on the arm. then just kind of stipple it up, just kind of smack the brush around as I go up so it doesn't have a band. Use your finger to kind of blend it like that. So that now all of a sudden I get this really cool transition from a darker skin tone down around the hands. You could also reverse this and have it be brighter at the hands, whatever you wanted. I just, for some reason, when I think about lizards and reptiles in general, I think that, you know, it's really fun to have the skin color change a little bit towards the extremities. See a lot of iguanas and things like that that have that happen. Just do it in a way where you don't have a line of color. Don't stop the color at a muscle like this, because then it looks like he's wearing a sleeve or something. Have it do it mid-skin. Why using that stipple texture is great, because like the highlight didn't get a filter on it, just everything below the highlight did, and so it makes it give it that transition. That I like a lot. Again, the power of glazing. Learning glazing is one of those things that should be principle on your mind once you're comfortable just getting paint in the right spots. If you're a true beginner and just starting out, like we talk about all the time, spend more time really focused on getting the paint in the lines, staying inside the area so that it's not, getting all crazy and, sloppy. And once you get past that point, then start thinking of all the ways that we use color, to create these filters and these cool blending areas where you can get your colors to work a lot heavier for you at very minimal cost labor wise, right? Like I'm talking, this isn't taking me any effort at all, right? It's just the confidence I have with working with thin paint for so long that allows me to come in here and know that, okay, well, I'm just going to stipple that up there and then hit it with my finger real quick, and boom. Now the bottoms of my appendages have a darker tone to them and blend out of the brighter colors that we did without getting rid of them, right? I still have the nuance of the magenta and everything there. And it's really subtle. I could layer up again and make this even more if I wanted to, but I like the subtleness of it. I think that works pretty well. I'm going to do a little bit on the mask of his face too. For some reason that appeals to me. Again, I'm just going to my brush strokes start further back on the head and come forward to the face. Because remember, your brush leaves the bulk of pigment where you stop, not where you start. It can leave it where you start in particular techniques, but for what we're doing, I'm going to do it like that. Remember, we will re-highlight all this, so it's darkening up our highlights, but that's a benefit to us. That's what we want it to do here. Nice and subtle, but that's already drying. You can already see the intensity of it settling on the arms and on the legs. Coxie, what's going on? After some guidance for base coating with Pro Acryls, I'm finding when brushing on, I'm pushing pigment around. Too much wetness, most likely. If you say you're pushing pigment around, too much wetness on the brush will typically create a situation where your adhesion doesn't happen immediately. You're pushing, and it can be intentional, like glazing like this, where you don't want the pigment to stick immediately. But if you feel like you've got too much and you're spending too much time getting coverage, remember, our paint starts more fluid, not thinner, but more fluid than other hobby paints you're used to. So with other hobby paints, you feel like you have to add a lot of thinner to them just to get them to work. Our paints work right out of the bottle. So I always tell people, put it on the palette and then put it on the model. Don't have much more wetness on your brush than the dampness it takes to have paint flow, so very little. And then see how that works for you. That's the big key. Killjoy. Oh yeah, glazing will hide a ton of your blending sins. You've seen me on this guy just working super sketchy, super fast. Right, and all of the glazes will start to blend your colors back together and give you a much less textured model if you want to work fast, right? Or if you just want that to be part of your workflow in general, can work wonders. So, yeah, it's great. So yeah, that little bit of yellowish and warmth that we get there, it's not completely brown. Sepia, I think, is a great color for that. So feet, hands, I think that was great. Really subtle. You could push it more. I don't want it to look like he's wearing gloves. I just want it to be a little bit of nuanced color moving towards the appendages here. And I think that worked fine. Sepia is great. All of the expert acrylics are fantastic. Just absolute amazing colors. If you get nickel azo yellow, period. If you only buy a handful, get the Payne's gray. It's darker than our fluid Payne's gray. So the Payne's gray expert acrylic and the Payne's gray fluid acrylic work great together because the expert is much darker, right? Has a little less matte finish to it, much darker. It's much more of a black for you than the liquid one is, right? The Nicolazzo yellow, which is just one of the most amazing colors you'll ever have. It's so great for glazing over just about anything and adding warmth. Sepia, and then depending on what other things you like once we come out with that chrome oxide green, I think that's all of them are fantastic colors, but the rest of them are just kind of nuanced picks that you would want to get. But the Nicolazzo yellow, the sepia, and the Payne's gray are no-brainers. Buy them now. The titanium white's exactly like our normal titanium white, so that I really like. Okay, so then I think the question is, do we need to go back with the warm flesh again? Let's try it and see. Don't you love it that there's nobody here telling us to quit? Jen will get on here and say she's hungry, though. So there is that. I will have to finish eventually. I can't go all night. Look at this muddy area, right? One of the benefits of a thumb palette, if you choose to use it, is that you get to see the workup that you're doing always, right? It'll always kind of give you a sense of where you're at and what you're dealing with color-wise. All right, I'm going to just start on the peck here, right? And let's just do a little bit. Pulling that textured highlight back on there towards the upper right corner here. Remember, when highlighting skin, you don't want to really do edge highlighting on it. I think that's good. I think that gives us enough of a highlight base that I need to do this, brighten this up enough to be able to put a step brighter on it if I choose to. Like the olive flesh or an ivory color maybe. Warm flesh is one of Baby J's favorite colors, and it is an absolutely spectacular highlight when you're doing earthy tones. He loves it on his non-metallic golds. That'll put a little brightness in. I don't know that I want a whole lot down here. I might do a couple of little pushes of color, but I don't need a lot. Down here, this will be the final highlight. Otherwise, you start making your muscles look a little too shiny, which I guess if you really thought about it, this guy has like lizard skin. He might have more of a sheen, an oily, wet feel. I always love how lizards look wet all the time. Snakes look wet all the time, but aren't. They're actually like super dry to the touch. I like that. So yes, the long-winded answer here is that the warm flesh again is the right choice. And then go brighter over that. We had just enough darkening of the warm flesh due to the highlighting that we did, or due to the glazing that we did, that it makes sense to come back with it as another highlight. Also pick out more of those muscle striations, get a little bit more detail going. This will also help with hiding your blends now that the filter's on there. Being able to take and redo your actual highlight lines will bring back some of those areas, on something like this, especially where you have all this texture in the skin and the sculpt. Spend the time just doing those individual little wrinkles with a highlight. And it's by the time we're done with this, it will look like we've done a lot more blending than we actually have. We've done none. The only blending we've done is filters. Killer Croc. Yeah, he does kind of have a Killer Croc feel to him, doesn't he? Now that you say that. Minus the tail. This is just, I hope you're having fun. This has been an exploration in color. These are the kind of things that I like to do for palette cleansers. Pick up a model that I wouldn't have normally, needed to paint, but is something I enjoy. And just exploring with it, right? There's a lot of value to just jumping into something you don't have any, I'll say, emotional attachment to, because this isn't like a model for my next army. It's not like the general for my, my army that I'm doing. I don't have to have it be spectacular. So it allows me the ability to just kind of run and have fun with it. And in doing so, maybe find some really cool things that you wouldn't have thought of at other times, or to explore things you've seen, people do, like me on stream. You said, oh, Jason did that thing. I really have been wanting to try it. Grab a model, when especially in times where you're like, I just don't have the motivation to work on the army I'm working on. Best time in the world to pick something up that's like this, that would allow you the ability to play around. There's no enemy of fun. Exactly. What's the difference between Prussian blue and Payne's gray? Payne's gray is a super dark shade, and Prussian blue is a good blue. Right? Prussian blue is a good medium vibrancy blue. Oh, that's primary cyan. Prussian blue. Right. So you have the primary cyan and the Prussian blue are great. The Prussian blue is kind of a darker, more violety blue, not super violet, but Prussian blue is always going to be a little bit more violet. Better see across the band on top, right? So, and then primary cyan is the mixing color, right? Your dead nuts blue, and then the Prussian blue will give you a darker blue, and then Payne's gray is damn near black. These work great as a triad. Again, just finding a lot of the texture in the skin right now is awesome for these highlights. We've got such a good variation of color in the midtones and shadows that every time I brighten up one of these lines, it separates out all those other colors, where you might have a wrinkle that's magenta, a wrinkle that's green, right? Right next to a wrinkle that's got a little bit more of a fleshy tone to it. Joshua, no, this is my day off. I'm here having fun. Painting with friends. We've had some good discussions. I've been able to talk through just some fun I'm having with this guy, just exploring in color. Good palette cleanser. I typically, when I do these one solo sessions like this, I don't like to paint the model that Chris may be doing various recordings with, right? Because he'll be doing some sneaky recording of process and then turn it into a video. And if he was like, really wanting to see what happens with the, the bronze or whatever I'm doing, whatever I would do on the Duchess would take us away from that because he's not here to record. So I try to stick to Chris models when Chris is here. Other fun stuff when we're doing solos like this. This will be the final highlight on the hands, right? Because we did the darker sepia down here. I don't think we'll do too much else on the fingers and hand area, but so you're saying you should wait to ask me how to paint a wood style finish. I won't be doing any demo work today, but we've done a lot of that. How do you, when you say wood style finish, what are you meaning? Like, do you want to freehand grain, like wood grain, or you've got something that's wood and you want to make sure it just reads like wood when you're done? Because if it's a purely color question, I like doing, dark umber, light umber, olive flesh, and then after the olive flesh, I do a transparent brown filter over the top. That's how I do leather, wood, things like that. There's also an argument to be made that I do a lot of times with wood, which is do green filters, like camo green filtering and things like that over it. Depending on if it's like new growth or in a wet environment, wood can have a lot of nuanced colors in it. So there's a story to be told for browns, greens, yellows. Just depends on what you're going for. Is the pigment in the expert acrylic as fine as all the other paints? 100%. Yeah. The expert acrylics are kind of like the parent to our other paints. They're where the other paints come from. We just turn the expert acrylics liquid, right? We regrind our pigment like nobody's business. So we don't trust that the pigment granular size coming from the manufacturer is correct for painting, even though it's specified as such. We regrind everything up to 3 times with things like titanium dioxide. When you're a paint manufacturer, you just get pigment delivered to you in big bags, and you can then just put it in your mix and go for it. Because a lot of places will say, yes, paint grade ready, and it is. We don't trust that. We continue to regrind, roll, clean the pigment multiple times, way more than we need to, probably, because we're crazy like that. But that's what makes Procryl so much different, right? We treat it like an artistic product, not a house paint. We make that joke all the time, but it's true. Every pigment comes ready to be added to paint if you buy it from a supplier that knows about paint, which most people do. But that doesn't mean much because the world of paint is not built for miniatures. When you go ask, a lab to make a paint, they're going to take everything they know about making paint for houses because the coatings company world that's where it makes all its money. It doesn't make all its money in hobby paints or fine art paints. So they aren't built for that. So we have to restructure what we do to do that. So all of our paints have an extremely high or low, I guess, granularity for the pigment. We also use more than everybody else in our paint. So all of this texture, most of this texture is me. Some of it's on the sculpt and the shadows, but most of this is me, and I think it's adding a lot to the model by not just having it be smooth plastics. With a touch of bronze. Everything should have a touch of bronze, according to Chris. Joshua Lee, are we going to expand on the transparent paint colors more? Probably not. Would the expert acrylics take the place of that? Because the expert acrylics, the transparents are basically the exact same thing as our expert acrylics in fluid form. So same vibrancy, same intensity, single pigment, except for brown. All of them are fantastic in that regard. So I don't really see us doing more transparents, although dark magenta is technically a transparent. It's just not made with the same medium that the transparent's on. It works like a transparent paint. Um, the petroleum brown and the dark crimson to some extent work the same way, but again, different medium in them. They're the pro acryl paint medium as opposed to the transparent. But no, I don't see adding anymore. You can mix any color you want to out of them, and they do great. Wirehead wants the paints all in one, like the 4-ounce bottles, like all of our colors in the big ones. Yeah, I don't think anybody wants to pay for that. Especially not things like pyrrole orange or orange. Anything that has pyrrole orange pigment in it, you would hate me. You'd be like, down with corporate America. It's the single most expensive pigment we use, I believe. There might be a couple of others in that range, but that series is brutal. Just a little bit of highlight down here. And we're towards the bottom of the model, so we don't want to over brighten stuff that's down in the shadow region, but you still want to pop some detail out. Where you can. You just don't want it to look too jarring with its contrast. We've already done the darker filter over all of this. So just a couple of pinpricks of light, and then at the roll of skin across the toenail area, I think is fine. If you want to wait, also if you want to, I have some good ties with an injection molding facility if you want to look into that field for the framables and texture trainers. We don't want to do any of the stuff that we already do with injection molding just because the molds would cost so much, right? We'd have to redo the texture trainers into multi-part models or resculpt them all together. We've thought about that for new designs, but right now we're moving into all hand-poured resin. We can keep the cost very controlled on the hand-poured resin. That's what all of the framables are. Right, so the guys built our one of our production guys, Brennan, engineered a tremendous molding tank that is just amazing. So I could not do these. I mean, obviously the plastics would be cheaper, but I would have to. I don't know. I'd have to do the count on how many I'd have to sell in injection molded plastic to get these done. These would inject because these will single part mold. So we don't have to do two-part molds on these. I designed them and worked with the sculptor, Francesco, to make sure that we could do that. So they work fantastic for that. But I like the heft of them to go in a frame, so the frame isn't ultralight. And the injection molded plastic would be almost weightless. I don't know why, but I like the idea that the frame is very weighty, sitting on a table and such. What do you think about playing against unpainted models? You see many people having an issue with this, saying that it says you don't care about the hobby, that it's disrespectful on other players that paint their models. I have a strong statement about our hobby. Our hobby is not just playing the game. You can play any game. You could go buy a board game or a video game and not have to paint things. So as long as you are building your models to eventually paint your models and become part of the whole hobby entirely, then I don't have a problem with it at all. If there are people out there who are just buying unpainted models to play Warhammer, I don't know that I have a problem with it. I'm not going to make that person feel, not welcome, but I don't like that about our hobby. I don't think our games are good enough to be just for play. That's a really harsh way to say that. But do you understand what I'm saying? None of our tabletop war games are good enough to just be there to play. If you could just make cardboard chits out of them, and they were the old Panzer General games and stuff like that, which I think are really good and valuable, and there's great tactics, and those games are great. But that's not what we have. The hobby is a big part of it. But I've played with tons of people. I've played with unpainted minis. Hell, I've taken pictures and shown you guys. I don't mind playing with unpainted minis. My goal is to paint the models, but I also understand that it's a lot to invest in a hobby to build and paint before you've ever played them. There's been many times where I've built a small skirmish band in order to see if I like the way an army plays, and then not like the way they play, and then never painted them. And I think that's fair. Perfectly fine. Sell them, trade them off to your friends, get models you do like, and then when you find one that plays the way you like, then invest the time and paint it. or get it commission painted if you don't like painting at all. But I do believe that the visual aspect of painted models makes the games what they were intended to be. Gray models do not. The games aren't good enough for gray models. They're just not. Go play a video game. You can find better games that are not requiring you to paint. But I don't see how it's disrespectful. No. Yeah, Tadpole, I don't see how it's disrespectful to anybody else. I mean, it's not like that's what we play the games for. You're not, you know, that I don't understand. It's never disrespectful. I mean, I don't, at least I don't think so. Maybe there are certain people out there that do, but nah. You have a buddy who just primes him a solid color. He likes the game. You like the painting. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. You think not letting people play with gray models as it could take years to complete an army? Yeah, you have to let them play. Yeah, I pay. Like I said, I paint with or play with unpainted models as long as it takes you. I would like to see people continually working to paint models. Obviously, I have a vested interest in painting. That's what I'm here for. I don't play the games as much as I paint. So for me, it's more about the art than it ever will be about the game. I never has been. So that's the side I love. But when I go to play games, I also understand. Like I can't. You seen how long it's taken me to paint my Blood Angels? Are you kidding me? If somebody was like, "Hey, you want to play your Blood Angels against my guys?" I'd be like, "Heck yeah, let's go play." And half of my army would be unpainted or base coated or primed or whatever. I don't have a problem with that at all. That's not disrespectful. No. I think if there was a tournament that required you to have tabletop ready models painted, and you came with not painted models and demanded to be able to be in the tournament, that's disrespectful. That's where I could see maybe that coming up. Because if the rules state you have to have painted models and you come arguing you shouldn't have to paint your models, that's disrespectful to the tournament, not to anybody in particular. But you got to follow the rules, right? You can't say that I don't like painting, I should be able to play. Nah, it's not what this game's about, right? That's like people that don't like PvP games saying they should be able to have a PvE experience inside of a PvP game. I should be able to play Battlefield 6 and not get shot at. Same thing, right? Is it disrespectful then also to not have Golden Demon level painted models? No. No way. No way, dude. Not at all, man. The basic no. The hobby is whatever you want it to be. If you want to dry brush and wash and highlight your models and that is where you want to live, man, more power to you. More power to you. There should be no standard because the standard is subjective and changes. It's hard to make people meet a standard. I don't understand that. So Anakin says pay for commissions. Yeah, but then again, you get into people that are like they don't want to spend a lot of money to have somebody else paint their model, and that's fair as well. I don't buy into any of that. The hobby's to have fun, and the hobby should be inclusive for anybody that wants to come have fun and push models around and blow stuff up. My take. Now, like I said, I would love to see everybody move towards painting their models because there are much better games to play than ours if you're not intending on taking part of the larger side of the hobby. Someone mentioned it. The hobby is way bigger than the games. And so, I don't understand where the disrespect thing comes from. I don't think it's disrespectful to anybody. But like anything, there's people who get tremendously emotional about their stuff. They spend a lot of time painting the model and then sit down at a table with somebody that, spray painted theirs with a base coat and they feel like, man, that's just not what this is about. But that's fine. You know what? Become a coach or a point of inspiration for that person that hasn't found the glory of painting yet and help them understand how fun painting can be outside of just caring about the models on the table. Painting is just a cool way to spend time. Great way to meet new friends, hang out. That part of the hobby has got so much going for it. And sometimes it just needs you to cheerlead it for them before they really understand. So I would say spend your energy there rather than getting negative about the fact that somebody hadn't painted a model, right? That's a waste of time. That's never going to translate well in a conversation. So instead of that, just go through and say, hey, why don't you come up here on Wednesday nights to the shop? I'll come up here next Wednesday and we can paint together. I'll show you some tricks that'll make it easy, right? I could sit down with somebody and in no time at all show them how to get their models painted to a pretty high standard with no effort at all, right? I do it every day here on stream. Well, I'm lying. I don't show you every day how to paint with no effort at all, but I can and have shown you how to paint with no effort at all to get a really good setup going. But again, you have to want to, right? You can't force people to enjoy something they don't enjoy. I don't like the games very much. I have people that say that it's disrespectful, probably for me, to not want to get really, into the game that I paint the models for. I don't know how that translates, but whatever. I'm not trying to be disrespectful when I say that I don't care, how Space Marines play. I just have been in this for so long, and the art is where I choose to spend my time rather than the game. But the cool thing is that the hobby affords you to be a part of it however you want to. There are no rules. Well, until you go to that tournament that says you have to have your models painted, then there's rules. I would never say to a younger kid that came into the store that wanted to play Space Marines because he loves Space Marines but hadn't learned how to paint yet, that kid has to paint? What? You kidding me? Keep them happy where they're happy, and then guide them towards, the destination that you think is a lot of fun that they may enjoy. And if they don't enjoy it, don't push them. How many of you have ever been in a situation? I mean, I use the joke that it's like people telling me I'll like the way they cook Brussels sprouts. I hate Brussels sprouts. I'm not going to try your Brussels sprouts. How annoying is it when people continue to tell you to try their Brussels sprouts? No, but really, my grandmother, oh my God, Gran, get over it. I'm not eating your Brussels sprouts. I'm really digging this guy. I think we've done some cool work today. Hobby is yours. I've played against people who use cardboard cutouts, tape to play, base to play. Heck yeah. Oh, in War Machine, we used to use proxies of all sorts, just a base, because we played competitively, and you didn't want to invest in the army if the army didn't play or you couldn't pilot the army correctly in a tournament. So we'd play and we'd sit there and talk about it. And if at the end of the day you're like, yeah, I'm not playing this, then don't buy the models and paint them. That's what I was saying. Yeah, definitely not. But yeah, like people are saying, when you have a fully painted army on both sides of the table, it hits different. It just does. It just does. You find painting more fun than video games. And I get it's something I can look for. Yeah, exactly. Right. Well, I like it. Obviously, I like painting better than almost everything because it's real. I have it to hold in my hand when I'm done. I like making stuff. There's a guy in town here that paints models for table ready for people at I don't know, $5 or $10 a model. It's insane. Insane. That's cheap. Yeah, exactly, Agrippa. Exactly. Craig, this is I don't know what it's called, but it's the Vornash tribe from Hate. It's one of the big hero models out of Vornash. There's usually two medium big guys, 8 or 10 25 mil standard troops, and then one lord. I don't know what the rest of them are for Vornash. I think we painted the big dude from Vornash a long time ago. But the game is called Hate. Adrian Smith's Hate. Hate. You were so disappointed by the new version, Sugar Rush? I haven't tried it. We got a bunch of the models. Steamforge sent us a bunch of models, gave us a bunch of models at shows. I was really excited because we were big War Machine people. When Privateer Press, of course, Dallas with AMG, and a lot of the AMG guys were Privateer Press. And so I had damn near every army for War Machine, and a lot of them painted, and at various states. Trolls were my big thing that I loved the most. And yeah. But yeah, as it grew long in the tooth, I drifted away from it. Same with Infinity. I really loved Infinity for a long time, and then I just kind of gave up on it. It wasn't fun to play anymore for me. The backside of this other leg, and then I think I'm done with the skin for today. I'm not going to start in on anything else. We've been going at a good clip. Yeah, I don't like policing of fun things very much. I say that, and then at certain times you're like, look, you gotta have some some rules and such if you're going to have events. That part I get. But I think that if somebody were to find this hobby and be like, oh, yeah, man, I love playing 40K, but I'm never painting anything and I don't have money to commission, I'm not going to fault that person. That person doesn't have to tell you, but they know it's true that if their army was painted, it would be so much more fun. A lot of people will, and I'm calling you out if this is you. A lot of people will say they don't like to paint because they're afraid of painting, and that's fine, right? It's like, I'm not going to go skydiving because I'm afraid of dying, right? Except that painting hopefully won't kill you, but I get it, right? It's like if you don't feel like you can do great at a thing, sometimes the pressure is on to just not even start it, and there's nothing wrong with that. I totally understand. But I think that, like I said, I try to be a positive influence to getting people to paint. There were a lot of people, some of them here at Monument Hobbies, Chris included, didn't care about painting at all. Chris has come a long way. A lot of it because he hosts this show, right? And does the production work on the show. But there's a lot of people like him and Gabe and stuff that when they do get focused on painting, they're painting now. They're not just slapping a few colors on the model to have the model be, quote unquote done. They're actually trying to get better at painting. So it takes time for people to find their way to that being their core driver, I think. If it ever becomes their core driver. Like I said, sometimes it won't. And that's fine. You can just rattle can prime and zenithal, coat it. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, so we tend to talk like it's so easy to paint, but remember, for some people, staring at 100 models for their Space Marines or their dwarves or whatever and saying, oh crap, where am I going to have time to do that? Totally get it. I totally get it. Especially now when you can just go on eBay and buy an army that's already pre-built and start playing. It's easier than ever. I like the fact that I painted this years ago. This was part of I think it's still a video on our YouTube channel of how to do non-metallic metal very quickly and define the shapes and get the highlights on it. This was painted like, I don't know, good God, if you're telling me I received this in 2019, we might have painted this in like 2020, right? And I'm just now getting around to actually painting some of the other stuff. And I don't remember how he painted it, so we're going to have to repaint it. But it's funny how that works, right? Super Duper John, it's good to see you, man. Good to see you. Have I ever played Dystopian Wars? No. I have messed around with some of the models before. And yeah, War Cradle does it, Dystopian Wars, and they had like another game that was like the footbound version of it. They have armor something. They have like a epic scale version of it too that's like tanks and stuff. I was just over visiting with them. I was in the War Cradle studios when I went to the UK and got to see a lot of stuff over there. They have a lot of fun stuff. I like that diesel. I think they call it diesel punk. They don't like steampunk. I think they like diesel punk. I think it's Armored Clash. I think it's diesel punk is what they call it. Yeah, they got some neat stuff. I like that. I like that vibe. Right? That kind of pseudo-Victorian technology stuff is always kind of fun. I've never played it though. Personally, you find building the model to be 90% of the painting process? Oh, 100%. I don't like building anymore. I'm horrible. You just finished your son's 15-year-old World Eater army because he hated painting, but now plays at LGS that requires at least 3 colors on all models. Yeah, and I think that's healthy. A lot of people complain about, I'm going to put this on top of something so that it stays a little more in focus for you. So it's not all blurry as I do nothing with it. I need to figure out some way to brighten up the dark recesses on the top of his head, so I'll still work on that. They're too dark. But that's I think it's good for the stores to have that. Like, you need to be showing progress again. I don't like that if I show up with a brand new army, I can't play it. So there has to be a happy medium that, hey, you can play with that today. Next time I want to see at least, the army primed. Yeah, there's some stores around here that do that. Like the owner, the ones that smaller stores. Hey, next time let's help you prime. If you don't have primer, come in, I'll let you use the store's primer and I'll show you how to do it. Be that positive influence. Don't be the person that says you can't come back if your army isn't painted, right? That's my take on it. Because we have to be the positive influence to get people to do things they're scared or not wanting to do. You just have to. Even though we think it's fun, you can't attribute it to them as being fun. Oh, dude, it's so much fun to paint. And they're like all stressed out about it because, having a model that looks bad that people laugh at is probably the doom of their life. So you can't do that, right? You can't like tell somebody that they have to paint their models if they think they're going to get laughed at with their inability to do so. That just sucks. And you can't be like, well, then you got to pay somebody to do it for you. That sucks too, because that's a barrier to entry. But saying, hey, come in, I'll show you some quick trips. Quick tips. Huh. We'll zenithal prime it for you, and then you'll have some details there, and then I'll show you how you can glaze paint over, or use speed paints to just put a color on your Space Marines and get them to be that color, and they look like you've done a lot of work, and then I'll show you how to dry brush the details back on, and then all you have to do is paint the guns, right? You just have to paint the bits, right? And then that can be something that makes them feel so much better about the journey, and they'd be like, oh, I can do that. I didn't think it was that easy. I've seen millions of, well, not millions, but literally tens and tens of cases of people being that exactly that. They're like, oh, I can do that. I thought all of them had to look like the stuff on Instagram. You're like, no. See, somebody mentioned before, it's like if you're under the impression that I can't paint like the guys on Instagram, of course not. But that's not what they're asking you to do. So it's about done. Mr. Blue, it's about done. I'm done painting. I got done what I wanted to do. I'm really happy with the progress we made on him. Right? Had no idea where we'd wind up, and I really dig where it ended. So, good stuffs. Got to get some more color. Using my own words of wisdom, it's time to start painting some of the other things so we can see how bright to make the skin. I don't want to put the olive flesh on it yet. If this is bright enough once we get done, and then I got to paint like teeth and all that kind of crap. The metal chains around his neck and everything. I got to figure out how we're going to do it. This is all armor plating down here too. So a lot of non-metallic metal to do. Wirehead, your son runs 2 clubs in town. Awesome. He really likes playing. We have kids who don't have paints, bring their minis in, and we help them right down to giving some kids a few bottle of paints and a couple of brushes. Wirehead, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's the kind of thing that motivates, right? And that's how we get more people that stay in the hobby, right? You get people leaving the hobby when you enforce rules that don't make any sense. That's just the truth. That's just the truth of anything. You're like, oh, I mean, I just paid $800 for this army. I can't play it. Well, crap. And then people will leave the hobby even with their $800 spent more times than you can imagine because of gatekeeping like that. I hate saying gatekeeping. It's such a horrible word, but you understand what I'm saying. James Ben, thank you guys for hanging out with me. This has been a lot of fun. These solo streams are a lot of fun for me. It's a good break. I'm sorry because if there's been a lot of questions in chat that I've missed, that's me being horrible. I need a producer. Am I the keymaster? Are you the gatekeeper? Zool. I only missed 7 questions, Mo. Oh, and you didn't tell me which ones, or did you also tell me? So technically I missed 14 because I missed you telling me about the 7. Yeah, we got to blame Chris. He didn't show up on the day I told him not to show up. That rat bastard. What I meant was that you needed to be here, damn it. Panic Bomb, you finished a mini. Awesome. 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 Thank you, everybody, so much for hanging out with me and watching some paint dry on my day off. I've enjoyed this. Again, just starting from a mini that, I had no intention of putting color to getting to a point where I'm really happy with the way the colors flowed on it. Hopefully I've given you some ideas on how to take and explore in color and do some fun stuff, right? Got some neat things that happened during our journey today, so it's a lot of fun. So write it down. Save the link. Go paint a model. And we'll be back here on Monday with Chris in tow for the regular stream at the regular time. Remember, if you are new around here, if you came through on one of the raids, thank you for hanging out with us. Make sure to hit the follow, like, and subscribe buttons depending on what platform you're on, because we do stream on Twitch, Kick, and YouTube simultaneously Monday through Friday from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Monument Standard Time here from Phoenix, Arizona. So we'd love to see you back when the full crew is around. Yeah, I'm probably not going to raid anybody because I don't have the ability to do that from where I'm standing. So I'm going to turn it off, and you guys are going to go have a wonderful weekend. I'm going to go have a lazy, wonderful weekend myself, and then we'll catch you back here on Monday. Thanks so much again, everybody, for hanging out with me. Love your faces. Hope you guys had a safe Thanksgiving holiday for those of you in the U.S., and for everybody else, I hope you have a wonderful weekend coming up, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Adios, gang. Now I have to see if my mouse still works. I'm out of here, I think. I'm supposed to hit another button, though. All right, I'm going to do this.